Welcome to the Out There channel, live stream 305. Here with Rob. We'll be with you after the intro. Whoop, I've got to mute speakers. Just went on the headset. Okay, there we go. Channel, live stream. Robert. No playbacks. Sound alright there though. No clicking. Let us know if there's any clicking sounds that happen during the live show, guys. We won't notice it. I think the CPU is about 5% less than it normally is since the upgrade, so maybe, fingers crossed, it's going to be good. Here we got Dave Andrews. I've not seen that name before. Let's just do a check here. Hope everyone's good out there. And keep looking to the skies and get those cameras ready. We need some decent evidence for once. There's so much crap on around YouTube at the moment, unfortunately. Get that silver craft from 300 feet away on video. That's what we want. So good to be back, and no hardcore swearing on the side, and let's just be respectful for everybody and just have a bit of fun. Whoop, guess what? I stuffed up the intro. Yeah. Okay. I knew I'd do something wrong. Early in the morning, I always do something wrong. Ah, so we're back at the desktop here. Oh, I thought I told it to stop. Yeah, that's got it. Oh, well, it doesn't hurt to do a double intro. Hey, so what are we doing today, Robert?
Yeah, I found an interview from Luis Elizando and head of ATIP, as I'm sure most people know.
Mm-hmm.
And it's only a few days old as well.
Right.
And I was it's with somebody that you wouldn't usually go on with. It's Radio America, and it's only a small little channel. It's only got like less than 300 subs on it. Can't remember the girl's name now that's conducting the interview. Sandra Carter it is, actually.
Right.
And I was quite surprised because normally when Louis does his interviews, he's very guarded and careful in what he says, and he tends to open out quite a lot in this one. So it's interesting. So obviously we'll stop it for analyses in places, but we can go straight on with it if you like.
Yep.
We shall leave a link.
Just yeah,
there's no music involved in this. There's
Alright.
So yeah, it's audio only, so I don't think you'll have any problems with running this interview.
Alright. A lot of these people have I was listening to Open Minds Rojas. He was saying that you can book these people in, they have agents, and doesn't matter how big the channel is, obviously through that method, although the agents probably want bigger exposure rate, right? So, yeah, I guess you could book him in too for a Sunday, which would be his afternoon probably. Where is he? California. That would be like 1:30 p.m. So it probably would be perfect time, really.
Okay.
I'll just post it in here.
Yeah, but the point here is that he's more open than he has been in previous interviews.
Right.
Where he's normally been very circumspect in what he tends to say. You know, yeah, I think he's actually on a friendly basis with this girl's boyfriend who served in, or husband who served in the military. So exactly.
All right, he's not on camera either.
He's not on camera. I said it's audio only.
So is it on phone? Is it tinny? Or they on Skype?
Yeah, how's the sound? People, let us know. And hello, and thanks for tuning in, guys.
Yeah, we take a wee while to warm up slowly. Okay, so need to probably get the right volume and all that. Although we shouldn't really play all of her stuff. If she's a small channel, she might not like that.
Well, you've got to skip the first 5 to 6 minutes anyway, Paul, because that's just an introduction. The interview doesn't start until then.
It's 15 minutes long as well.
Yeah, well, we've got plenty of time to do that.
It's got some ads in it, is it?
These are. What is it that
we just need to get the right start. You reckon 5?
Yeah, the sound is good, Paul, so don't worry about that, okay? 5 or 6 minutes it is.
Probably need to up the volume. Try that. Let me know if it's in the right place.
They call unidentified aerial phenomena. Luis Elizando led that department inside the Pentagon. He is not there now. He moved on. He still holds a very high level security clearance. He was the former director of the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program. It is a secretive Pentagon unit that studied these UFOs, these unidentified aerial phenomenons. And as a senior counterintelligence officer for the Department of Defense, he operated in Afghanistan. I've traveled there many times. Look, Lou has been all over the place. He has worked with our government. They have entrusted him with some of the highest classified secrets, including this. But there is a lot of evidence out there that this exists, and we have been witness to that. So I think the government is coming to a point where Americans are going to be made, and the world for that matter, more aware of what these possibilities are. What is it that we're seeing? What is it that our Navy is seeing? What is it that our pilots are seeing? You know, commercial air pilots. What is it that we are seeing in our night skies that we cannot explain? Is this a national security risk? Yes, this is a national security risk. Because when you hear Lou talk about these spacecraft, about these ships that have been recorded and monitored and out there now that take time. So I'm so grateful to have you on, wanting to discuss.
Yeah, she's got, he's not on yet.
Okay, JD is saying she's a bit loud. So the interview's a tiny bit loud. If you can turn that down on your end, Paul, please.
Not too sure why it's loud. I did turn it down. Normally it's too low. She must be really high quality studio there. She got it on maximum peak.
Okay.
Discuss. This is probably one of the most important topics globally. And the
States Army.
We just found him.
Yeah, sure. I think like a lot of folks, they get into
let it go now.
Some sort of service-related profession because they have a desire to serve the American people. In my case, I come from, on my father's side, an immigrant family. They're all exiles from Cuba. My father was involved in the Bay of Pigs. For me, freedom and independence is something that has to be earned, and there's a sacrifice behind it. And I was taught at a very young age from my family that, you know, freedom isn't free. And so for me, I felt that after graduating college, that it was my time to give a little back. And so I decided to join the United States Army.
Make sure to pause
a lot
it
of folks
out
out there that have been in the
comments.
Navy and Air Force and whatnot. There's this
Yeah,
kind of rivalry we have. I tell people I guess I didn't have a high enough ASVAB score to get into into the other services, but I was very fortunate. And as a young man, I went into the United States Army, and it really helped me be who I am today. From the Army, I was involved in some special activities and programs after that, and recruited into a very nuanced effort, and that took me to Latin America, and we were running intelligence operations, primarily counterinsurgency, human intelligence, counterintelligence, and some counter narcotics. And then my life changed, like it did for a whole lot of people after 9/11. My focus became primarily at that point counterterrorism and counterintelligence, focusing on places like Afghanistan and the Middle East. Not really a whole lot different than other folks who've been in the military. I'm sure they can relate. And after that, I found myself working in DC.
This is the best part, guys, because I mean, it's all amazing, but your life is so incredible because not only did you work in these very, I call it cloak and dagger activities or departments within the military, but then you go to the most compelling, most secretive, most investigated, I would think, area of the Pentagon, right? We didn't even know until you went public that there was a division actually continuing to investigate unidentified aerial phenomena or UFOs. We had no idea. So talk a little bit about that. Sorry to interrupt, but I'm just so excited about this part of your story.
No, I understand. You're absolutely right. In 2008, by the way, I didn't ask for the position. Most of the jobs I've ever had in the department, pretty much I was voluntold. I was assigned. So as your husband can attest, a lot of times you're just told to do a mission, and that's what you do. That's your job. In this particular case, in 2008, I had left working the Director of National Intelligence, the DNI, and was asked to come over to the Department of Defense to establish some new programs. And it was during that time that some people approached me, not too different than what you would see in a Hollywood movie, which is kind of bizarre. But some folks showed up to my office and they said, "Hey, are you Luis Elizando? We'd like to talk to you." And of course, the first thing that comes to mind is, what I do now, right?
Right.
And they said, "Listen, you have some background in aerospace, we see, and you're a CI guy, counterintelligence guy, and we'd like to talk to you about maybe using some of your expertise in a portfolio that we have. It's a very nuanced portfolio. We can't tell you much about it, but if you're interested, let us know." And so after about 2 or 3 of these really kind of mysterious, weird meetings where I wasn't quite sure, someone's setting me up here, is this a joke, or is this some sort of IG investigation? Long story short, they asked me to attend a meeting at an undisclosed facility in the DC area, NCR, National Capital Region. And there I sat down with a gentleman. He, you're I don't want to say your typical scientist, but when you think of a rocket scientist, you think of somebody who just, they ooze that educated look. Well, this gentleman was definitely that.
Was it Elon Musk? No, I'm just joking.
Yeah, this person was not Elon Musk. He had he wore glasses, a very nice suit, but clearly he was indeed a scientist. And he sat down and he asked me, said, "Look, very, very impressive background. We think that you're going to make a good fit here, but I got to ask you a question." I said, "Sure." He said, "What do you think about UFOs?" And kind of took me by surprise for a second. And of course, you're thinking to yourself, is this a trick question? Is this just trying to, assess my gullibility? And I told him the truth. I said, I don't think about UFOs. He said, "Well, what do you mean you don't think about UFOs?" I said, "Well, I don't have the luxury to. I don't have an opinion either way. I don't have any data in front of me, and quite frankly, I'm busy on other things." His response to me was, "That's great, Lou. I'm glad you have that open mind, but don't let your own bias, analytic bias, get in your way, because you may learn some things that will really surprise you."
1 second, Lou. Did that when I'm hearing you describe?
But when you watch that TV show, I find him to be too open and not very knowledgeable on what he's looking at.
But what he's doing there, Paul, he's playing kind of devil's advocate a little bit. And then you've got Steve Justice and Chris Mellon, and maybe a little bit more skeptical. And that is the entertainment side of the TV show. So I wouldn't read too much into that, Paul, personally. Because it is the History Channel. It is Disney, basically, isn't it? And the TTSA, let's face it, they are a corporation and money-making industry. So, you know, the shows aren't all going to be like... but there's always going to be a little bit of hullabaloo in there. Can I put it that way?
I don't know.
But no. And he's going through his background there. So obviously this guy was a pretty courageous man. I mean, counterintelligence, you're going to be out in different countries like North Korea and China and Russia. And I'll tell you what, you get caught out there as a counterintelligence guy, and put it this way, he must have risked his life on many occasions. You have to admire him for that.
I just wish
these
guys, I wish these guys had a better scientist on the show, because the one they refer to doesn't see the obvious.
Oh, you mean the skeptics they have on the show?
No, the scientists they have on there, that's meant to be the video analysis dude, which is not very good. I don't know what his name is, but they need to replace him with maybe a bank of hive mentality. They need to at least put it out there to...
Paul, there's other people they could do with on that show as well, like a really good UFO historian, and we'll see that right at the end of the show, by the way. So, come on, let's roll on. It's not about us, it's about him.
Describe this moment. I mean, was it just kind of like, what went through your mind? Were you just like, holy cow, I am so going to take this job? Or, whoa, wait a minute, do I want to jump into this? What were the thoughts running through your mind at that moment?
I think the first thought was, okay, there's a hidden camera here somewhere, and a bunch of my old special operations friends are setting me up. Right?
Yeah, I could see them doing that.
Right, and because they're kind of crazy that way sometimes.
That's right.
But he didn't flinch, and he wasn't smiling, he wasn't laughing, and he had a stack of papers on his desk, and I knew very quickly he was serious. This was not a joke. And so, I guess I approach this the same way I do everything else. Take the topic of UFOs out of the equation, and what you're left is with a big question of what something is. No different than when you're running a counterterrorism investigation or an espionage investigation. You're trying to find facts, and you're trying to collect evidence and present that evidence before a jury, if you will. So I think basically my initial response was probably like everybody else. I kind of leaned back a little bit in my chair and kind of looked at him and was trying to assess his body language. But very quickly I realized he was serious. And at that point, I also realized I probably couldn't have this conversation with anybody else at this point.
That's very interesting, because this is going back to 2008. You ended up taking the job. You still have a security clearance. There are things that and let me bring this up so that all of you out there who are listening to Lou right now, I mean, he has this phenomenal show. It's called Unidentified, Inside America's UFO Investigation, and it's on History Channel. And I got to tell you, it just blows my mind, because he gets people on the show that have never spoken publicly before. These are senior officials within the military, people who have firsthand eyewitness accounts of these phenomena that cannot be explained. But you are very clear in the show, and you're very clear in your in real life that you are not going to discuss anything that is classified. So everything that you are discussing right now with me on the Sarah Carter Show is these are situations that have been declassified. Am I right? Or situations that you can discuss?
I mean, these are details I can certainly discuss, because I think there's a big mystery on what makes information classified.
Right.
And really, according to U.S. law, there's really only two things, the reason why you classify information, and that's to protect sources and methods. So as long as I don't get into any detail about sources and methods, for example, specifics on individuals and how information is collected, right? Anything that could give away a key piece of our capability to a foreign adversary, I should be okay. There are security classification guides that I have to obviously be familiar with. There are categories of information that I absolutely cannot discuss, and I don't intend to. I mean, I very much take my oath, my security oath seriously, my non-disclosure agreements. I still do have my security clearance. That's an absolute fact. So, to some degree, my hands are a little bit tied, but from another perspective too, I have a lot more freedom now than I ever had before when I was an ATIP.
Right. So talk to me a little bit about, well, first, let's jump into something that I know all of you out there want to hear. First of all, it's the Tic Tac incident. Obviously, when I was texting Lou yesterday, and I was doing it by voice command, it said the TikTok incident. No, this is the Tic Tac incident that happened in 2014, correct? And
No.
This was with our U.S. Navy and the Nimitz. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because that was the first major episode of your series, and I found it to be so fascinating. And there were so many eyewitnesses, and you delved into it like I've never.
Yeah, the Tic Tac incident was 2004. The other incident was the Roosevelt incident. That one happened in the Atlantic, Paul. That was 2015.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, a lot of those people, with the Roosevelt incident, whatever kind of military exercise they were conducting there, a lot of those people are still obviously in active service. So we're going to learn more about that case as the years go on.
Mm-hmm. Hey, Ken's on the side. How's it going?
Hey, Ken.
Let's carry on.
Yeah.
Never seen anyone in regards to taking so seriously what is a viable situation that could possibly be a threat, we don't know, of these unidentified aerial phenomena.
Yeah, sure. So the Tic Tac incident actually began in 2004 in November timeframe. Believe it or not. No, you're not. You're still accurate, because these events continued all the way up until to present day. So actually, you are accurate. But let's start, I guess, maybe with the genesis of the whole Tic Tac event for maybe your listeners who aren't familiar.
He's being nice to her.
In November 2004, the USS Nimitz Battle Group, which is a nuclear-powered aircraft carrier, along with a bunch of other boats, they're going out and they're doing what they call their workups. And their workups are basically kind of training up before you go on a real-world deployment, right? This is post 9/11. The United States has got a huge security posture, and the Nimitz is about to go out and do its job. So for the months before this deployment, they're doing workups, they're training. And as a result, you have this huge Navy footprint out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, off the coast of San Diego, California. And lo and behold, you have these aircraft. You have two F-18 fighters, Navy fighters, that are in this simulation dogfight with two Marine Corps F-18s. And this is common. This is how you practice, right? And all of a sudden, the crackling over the radio, you hear these voices, and these voices are coming in from, at the time, the E-2 Hawkeye, which is the if you will think of a quarterback on a ball field. They had this huge radar dome, and their job is to have a common operating picture of the battle space using this super radar. You also have a ship, the USS Princeton at the time, that has a Spy 1 radar, one of the world's premier radar arrays on the planet at the time. And all of a sudden, you hear these voices coming into the pilots, and the pilots recount this on the show, but they've also done this for others as well. And all of a sudden, they're vectored. They say, "Hey, listen, there's something on the radar we're picking up. We want you guys to go check it out." So lo and behold, the two Navy F-18s go out, not sure what this is. They're thinking, maybe, is it a drill? Is it an exercise? And the voices on the radio that are both on the Princeton and on E2 Hawkeye say, "This is not a drill. This is real world." So naturally, the pilots are thinking maybe this is some sort of drug interdiction, or maybe there's an airplane that went down. And as they look into the water, they notice this roiling of the ocean. And above that is this object that is described by the pilots as a white tic tac. It's this perfectly smooth, cylindrical shaped object, no wings, no means of thrust or propulsion, no cockpit, no lights, no rivets,
CPU
just this
peeking a wee
smooth
bit there.
object that looks like a white tic tac. And this thing is moving erratically over the surface of the water, about 50 feet, and not like a helicopter that would be hovering. This thing is really moving erratically.
How big is it? It's about, how big was
Yeah, you're about right, about 40 feet. So
40 feet.
An approximate guesstimation is this object's about 40 feet. And as one of the pilots at the time, Commander Dave Fravor, goes into a little bit more of an offensive position to get a good look at this thing, all of a sudden, this thing starts countering his maneuvers, elevates in altitude, and then all of a sudden just takes off like a bat out of hell. Gone over the horizon within literally a blink of an eye.
I wish
and this
we had
was witnessed not only by
that.
Commander Fravor and Jim Slate, who've now been on the record to
I think
talk about
maybe
this,
they have.
but two other individuals who are still, by the way, active duty and very senior in the Navy, whose identity I won't reveal right now because they've asked not to be revealed. But they all saw the same object at the same time, at the same place, do exactly the same thing. Now, let's take this into context. These are trained observers. These are individuals.
Yeah. I know we're in the middle of a good bit there, but I'll just say quickly, I think Louisa said in the past there was 12 of the videos, of high definition footage.
Right.
I mean, we all know that those Nimitz videos to be seen were dumbed down. They were lowered in resolution before they were put out there for public consumption. So I don't know. I mean, there's two ways of looking at that. One, would it have been a little bit too scary at the time for the people to see if it was all close up and personal, and because then they wouldn't have plausible deniability, would they? If it was clearly something non-human.
Well, I don't think they'll have really good footage.
At the other side of it. Well, then you've got to look at the other side of it. If it was something man-made, Paul, somebody may then realised what it was, and so I don't know. That there's always that element of doubt, isn't there?
If you look at the camera tech back in 2004, we're looking at 3 megapixel cameras back then, so I don't think the 2004 will have fantastic footage, but certainly 2015 should definitely have HD. At least 1080p or maybe even 4K type image technology.
I don't know. They may have had 4K long before.
I don't think so. Normally they put it on space flights, the latest technology for NASA to record everything. And it's, as you know, early film was 4K anyway. Even going back to the 18 or something hundreds, going back to the early day of film where they're using 8mm, that's 4K definition. Even they can scan it in and get that quality, you see. That's why they call it remastered. But anyway, we'll carry on.
Yeah, sure.
Who are trained to look at an aircraft 20 miles away and determine, is it an F-16, is it an Su-22, is it a MiG-25, or is it a European Tornado? Right. And yet this thing doesn't look like any aircraft they've ever seen. Oh, by the way, it turns out that this encounter was backed up by radar data on both the E-2 Hawkeye and the USS Princeton, and there's gun camera footage, right? So it's easy for someone to say, look, maybe they saw something, it was an optical illusion, it was a weather anomaly, but now you have it actually on gun camera footage and radar data. So you have 3 separate data points all looking at the same object at the same place and doing the same things. This was really the first time we had this compelling data. We had the technology to capture one of these things.
After that, was that when the Pentagon realized, okay, this is really important? The U.S. military, I know other nations, other nation status, Great Britain, France, Germany, other nations, Russia, are very interested in what they consider to be UFOs, unidentified flying objects, unidentified aerial phenomena. Was this the point where the United States government said, whoa, wait a minute, we need to start monitoring this? Or did it happen later after numerous other sightings?
That's a great question. The answer is going to be both yes and no. And let me explain that for a minute. So the United States government has had other quote unquote UFO or UAP programs in the past. And I think most notably people are aware of maybe tangentially of a program called Project Blue Book. Since World War II, our pilots have been reporting strange things in the sky. Back then, they referred to them as quote unquote foo fighters. But enough pilots were witnessing these, and allied pilots, where I think the U.S. military realized there's something to this. What this is, we don't know yet, but something is really there. And so you've had over decades these different iterations of programs that have come forward and been revealed. Now, when you ask me the question, is this the first time the U.S. government in recent history took this topic seriously? Mm-hmm. The answer is a definitive yes. But I'll also share with you, Sarah, that not too long ago, for a while when I was part of HIP, I really thought this was it. We were kind of the first, if you will, and premier program like this in the U.S. government. But it wasn't until afterwards that, and I have to be careful about providing the circumstances, but I met an individual, and I met this individual in official U.S. government spaces. And this individual was sponsored by some very, very senior people. And they asked me to come in and give them, if you will, a back briefing of the HIP program. And these are senior government officials. So I gave them a briefing, and I noticed there was a gentleman sitting in the back corner, older gentleman, didn't say anything, didn't introduce himself, was just listening to me. And because I was invited to speak with them, obviously I'm not going to ask them who this individual is. It's really, frankly, none of my business. When I was finished with this briefing, the individual stood up. He walked over to me. He shook my hand. He said, "I just wanted to let you know, Lou, I used to have your program." Now, I didn't know what he meant by that, because obviously I've had a lot of programs.
Is that the religious guy that cancelled the program?
In my career. And I said, "So which one are you referring to?"
No, that's coming up.
And he looked at me and he said, "The program you're briefing on right now. I used to run the same program back in the Navy in the 1980s.
Huh.
So that, exactly right. That, to me, that was kind of frankly, a stunning moment, because up to that point, truthfully, I didn't know that there was ever truly another program after Blue Book.
Right, because Blue Book was supposed to be the end of it. Just for every one of you out there who doesn't know about Project Blue Book, I mean, Blue Book really was like, we're closing the books, the United States government on, aerial phenomena. We don't have any evidence of it. It was like when the Air Force tried to throw everybody off, for those people, especially that believe and that have said there's so much evidence out there that there is unidentified flying objects or aerial phenomena that is not from this earth or appears not to be from this earth, or something that the United States government can't identify. Am I right, Lou, that this was
Yeah, okay. So from 1969 until HIP, which started in, was it 2007, there was going to be no UFO programs running. That's absolute nonsense. Of course there was. I mean, if there's something in the airspace and you don't know what it is, you've got to study it. It would be totally irresponsible not to, because it could be, an adversary, couldn't it, a foreign country. Especially during the Cold War, Russia. So that, I mean, that's complete nonsense. When I think he says where he's actually a bit taken back by that statement that they were studying.
I think it's more the case. I think it's more the case that they.
We know the NSA, we know other agencies have been studying them all along. We've found that out through FOIA requests, so I don't know. So he's not telling us anything new there.
No.
But he's telling us something new. He's actually spoke to someone that ran the same project that he was running, which was ATIP then in the 80s, would have been under a different name, of course.
I think really they said that they're closing down the public part of the Blue Book. I think that was the case.
Yeah, absolutely. That's all Blue Book was. It was a public relations exercise.
Yeah, but it doesn't mean they were closing down internal military reports of UFOs.
Absolutely not. That's my whole point.
Yeah, that's it. And so program carried on as normal, but I just didn't want to spend any time on public ones because it wasn't really probably beneficial because they didn't have like the decent cameras like they have on the planes or on the ships or whatever. The incredible eyewitnesses that look out for who know planes and what makes the approaching ships out to sea, and they got to shoot them down or whatever. Or show them off.
Just a second there. Mike Rotanda, I can't see that. Hold on, let me switch tabs here. Yeah, Mike is saying, I just don't understand why they can't at least say we are not alone and tell us where they are from. Well, I don't think they know where they are from, to be honest.
Yeah.
I could be wrong. But I think to just shout out the word alien is going to be a little bit much for people just at this point in time. I think they're getting there. I mean, what they've said to this point is that the chances of these things being like Chinese, Russian, and North Korean is low probability. So if that's low probability, what does that leave? I mean, once you've eliminated the impossible, whatever remains, no matter how improbable, must be the truth. So let's just say it's 20% chance it's Chinese, North Korean, or Russian. That leaves 80% chance it's alien. So they've kind of said it, but they won't actually say it, if you see what I mean, which is, damn it, yeah, it's annoying. I understand, Mike. I understand.
But you got to remember too, have a look at all the paranormal shows on TV and people that's doing it that's not on TV, and how they've been trying to collect evidence and proof of the existence of afterlife, even if you want to call it.
Yeah.
And it's still not conclusive,
elusive.
you know.
Yeah, you don't expect maybe a civilization that's possibly a million years more advanced to just hand itself in. It's not going to be that easy, is it? And people have to understand that.
It might be very complex. It might be that paranormal is really real, and it comes from the same interdimension or probably parallel universe where they pop into ours, and the aliens might be coming here to round them up and send them back home, you know. And part of that might be Bigfoot. So Bigfoot's accidentally walked into our universe from their universe, and the aliens are coming to pick them up and get them away. You know, it could be something like that. You know,
sure. And so Charles says here, maybe because of panic, of course, because look at the way we've responded to this COVID-19. Couldn't buy a toilet bill. So yeah, imagine telling people about aliens. Sure, okay. I'm cool.
Especially if you can't say.
I know there's aliens. Well, I'm convinced myself, anyway.
Well, especially since they can walk through walls and things and show up any time without any sound and any visible craft.
Then once you approach abductions, oh my God.
Yeah, and that might be one of the major reasons. That's right. That's probably one of the major reasons they won't say. Yes, it's complicated. We still don't know what it is, and we may never know. Trying to catch evidence on camera is very difficult. 99% of videos out there on the web are just garbage, mundane stuff, misidentified. I don't care what anyone says that they think they've got a UFO on film. The credible cases I know, or credible people I know, multiple witnesses that have seen the silver disc craft, which you've heard from the 1950s. They saw it quite close up and personal, hovering above trees out the back of their house, that sort of thing. And
the Falcons even,
And
I mean, to me,
Mojo's
it all
video
began
still
with the
might be
Foo Fighters.
Yeah, Mojo's video still might be very legit that no one believes him, but that was at the back of his house, a swampy piece of land. So, and they were sucking up water. You could hear the pumps in the background. And of course, people were saying it was fire trucks and all that sort of business. And he said it's rubbish. It's not. So who do you believe? I suppose he was a wee bit gullible, though. He was a Dr. Greer believer and all that sort of stuff, and he instead of sending it to MUFON like he should have done, he sent it to Dr. Greer's lot, which was the wrong thing to do. So it's who you know, not what you know. Once you get some credible background and get people out there investigating.
It's also It's also a minefield. If you find yourself a really good video, if you're taking it yourself, who the hell do you send it to? Because if the wrong people get hold of it, then it's not going to end well, is it? They're just going to use it for their own.
What I said to Mojo is just take a clip off the main video that you got, keep the best bit for yourself, and submit it in that way. That way, they don't own copyright on it. But there's enough there that news channels and stuff can use. Even if you take a few snapshots from the frames, which you don't include in the video. But until they get that copyright business under control there, because I think MUFON want to profit from the best cases out there, right? And to keep funding their HQ people, which I don't think they are any benefit to the organisation whatsoever from what I've seen. There's people like Earl Grey, the people that don't get paid, that are doing all the grunt work and the face to MUFON. Even Earl Grey's been on TV now, and he still doesn't get paid for it, So
I mean, when money comes in, that's when the whole thing goes a little bit pear-shaped. I think there should be a passion. I don't think it should be done for money.
I don't know. I think
Paul, wait there just a second. I think can I just finish, Paul? I think it's okay to make some money from it if you're bearing your own expenses.
Exactly.
When you
I
look
think
at
it's
it see, I can't get a word in. When you look at it like Stephen Greer,
hurry up and spit it out then.
Yeah, I'll spit it out, Paul, but you've got to give me time to talk. I'm not a machine gun talker. Stephen Greer is asking for between 1 and 200 million to fund his free energy device, which he probably doesn't even have. Now that's clear. It's a clear case of profiteering, isn't it? Yeah, and he's taken his students for £2,000 a go, and it's recently been, at least theoretically, said that he's had his little team of people launching flares in these areas where he's taking them.
Well, that article,
you see what I mean? So it's a complete setup.
Yeah, there was a plane that passed through, which refused to talk to them when they questioned whether he dropped flares for Dr. Greer. No comment, so that kind of suspect. So it might not have been a military exercise, but he may have just paid someone to throw a handful of parachute flares out the windows as flying past at low altitude, which you can do because you ain't got air compression, a small plane. So I think there's a lot of dubious stuff that's going down, and people are just sucking it up out there, which is totally wrong. But for Earl, I have no problem for him being funded from the donations stuff to do proper research, as long as he revealed, if he had Earl that sort of did a TV episode once a week of some of the best cases he's looking at, and people could see where the money was being spent on materials, testing and all that sort of stuff, then they would keep funding it, you see. But now they see...
talking about MUFON, they've been a big letdown, haven't they?
Yeah, I think the whole structure is the problem. They've been selling off
the best information. They've been selling off the best cases to the highest bidder.
Yeah, that's right.
And the public don't have access to it.
Yeah. So, yeah, there's no problem with money, but people got to see where it's being spent, you know. It's like if I was making millions of dollars like Tyler Clockner, people would be able to see it because I'd have a UFO bus, would have people bring over from all over the different world, like yourself, to join us on these tours for hotspots and do some real investigation, right? And put it as a YouTube TV series that people can donate to and keep it funded, that sort of stuff. That's what MUFON should really be, you know. It should be something like that. It should be funding the best of scientists to be part of the team. So you're going to have to pay them and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, hold on, Paul. They had scientists on the team and they weren't using them.
I know. But I don't know if they're being paid or not, those ones or not.
No, they weren't. There was only a handful that were being paid. And there was a lot of money going in there.
Yeah, I don't know where the money was going. That's the problem. We need to see an audit of
Nobody
where
knows where the money's going. There's no breakdown of where the money was going.
No. And the latest episode they put up on MUFON TV was Chase Klotsky, or whatever her name is, talking about
she's gone now. They've got rid of her, haven't they?
No, she's on a new episode for MUFON. I'm not sure if she's back or not.
Really?
They sent her down with the Star team down in South America or something. That's on the MUFON TV. I thought, this is boring, and I ended up giving up on it. But yeah, she was bragging that she was down there and the kids didn't have a soccer ball and all this sort of stuff. It was quite boring, really. It wasn't anything about UFOs or anything.
Okay. Get back to the interview then.
Project Blue Book they were out there to investigate it, and basically after Project Blue Book, they threw away the key. That's what we were told.
Yeah, you're 100% correct. And I'll share something else with you, Sarah, and your audience that very few people are aware of. When I went down to South America, Latin America here this last year for one of the episodes, we had spoken with some very senior active duty military personnel in some other countries down there. I was absolutely floored. When I went to Uruguay, I spoke to some of the military individuals who run their existing program. Now, here in the United States, we don't like to talk about it, but down there in Latin America and other countries, they have no problems talking about UAPs, UFOs. In fact, they have actually official government sanctioned programs that's paid by the government. And in this particular case, the longest standing government controlled UFO program in this hemisphere is actually out of Uruguay. And when I went down there and they started giving me a briefing on their current investigations and what they're seeing, I asked them very specifically, you began back in the late 70s. What predicated this? Why did you start this program back in the 70s? And they said to me, and it's on camera. They said, we started this program because of a direct request by the United States Embassy.
Yeah, we saw that on the TV episode,
in 1978 here. They asked us to do it. And then they provided us, the United States Embassy provided us all the investigative material and standard operating procedures for Project Blue Book. And all
so
of a
was
sudden
Uruguay? So was Uruguay a cutout? Was that what it was?
That's a great question. Sarah, you're absolutely right. I mean, that's one is led to believe that, okay, the U.S. government is washing their hands officially of this, or certainly at least publicly, but behind back channels is asking other countries to now do what the U.S. government is pretending not to do. And when they open up the books, I'm looking at these SOPs, I'm looking at the investigative procedures. They are absolutely right out of the United States handbook for Project Blue Book. So the question is, why is there such a disparity? Is it a stigma issue? Is there some sort of weird national security issue? So those are some of the things, some of the questions that, when you say, hey, the program ended.
Right.
Well, let me just pause that for a minute. I forgot to start Pingy. Okay. Some of the clicking noises because it's hitting 100% CPU here, so there's not much we can do without more cores in the laptop. So yeah, he's talking about that trip down south where the pilot saw UFO outside the plane, and also talked to the military down there on, I think it was episode 3, was it? Maybe episode 4 on the season 2 of the show. And of course, the object was out of focus, and it creates that cell look with the ring pattern, which is to do with how light interference patterns work with optics in the camera. But yeah, it could have been anything. It could have been a planet, Jupiter, Venus, that sort of stuff. Who knows? The guy didn't check it with any of the apps from the plane. That's if they work on their altitude, because a lot of them need GPS and stuff. And also internet connection. So yeah, that wasn't a particularly great episode, I didn't think. But yeah, which is quite interesting.
They're going to make mistakes, you know. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, but it's quite interesting that they said that Project Blue Book wanted them to keep collecting stuff for military reports. So it wasn't actually that statement alone sort of adds to it that the public side of it they weren't too interested in. They really wanted to collect all military reports of unusual objects because it's more credible, I guess. And
you mean Blue Book now?
Yeah, he's talking about Project Blue Book went to South America, said keep collecting data for them.
Oh no, that wasn't Blue Book. That was another investigation.
Well, that's what he just said.
Yeah. So that was behind Blue Book's back.
Was it? I thought he said Blue
Yes,
Book. I'll just go back so you can have a listen to what he said.
Okay,
it was on the TV show.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're 100% correct. And I'll share something else with you, Sarah, and your audience that very few people are aware of. When I went down to South America, Latin America here this last year for one of the episodes, we had spoken to with some very senior active duty military personnel in some other countries down there. I was absolutely floored. When I went to Uruguay, I spoke to some of the military individuals who run their existing program. Now, here in the United States, we don't like to talk about it. But down there in Latin America and other countries, they have no problems talking about UAPs, UFOs. In fact, they have actually official government-sanctioned programs that's paid by the government. And in this particular case, the longest standing government-controlled UFO program in this hemisphere is actually out of Uruguay. And when I went down there and they started giving me a briefing on their current investigations and what they're seeing, I asked them very specifically, you began back in the late 70s. What predicated this? Why did you start this program back in the 70s? And they said to me, and it's on camera. They said, we started this program because of a direct request by the United States Embassy in 1978 here. They asked us to do it. And then they provided us, the United States Embassy provided us all the investigative material and standard operating procedures for Project Blue Book. And all
so
of a
was
sudden
Uruguay? So was Uruguay a cutout? Was that what
that's
it
a great
was?
Question. Sarah, you're absolutely right. I mean that's.
So they used the template from Project Blue Book.
Yes, because Blue Book finished in 1969. And
So
he was talking from 1978 onwards. So we need to get that bit right. That's why I take my time, Paul, and I don't blurt things out. So no, that had nothing to do with Blue Book as a program. Yes, but it had plenty to do. What they done, they used the same reporting template as Blue Book used.
It was from the US Embassy. Which is
fairly good towards the end.
The US Embassy requested.
Yes.
Yeah. Who set up Project Blue Book originally? Was it US Embassy or was it the military complex?
The Air Force. The Air Force.
Was that military complex?
Yeah, it was run from Dayton, Ohio.
Yeah, so it wasn't the US Embassy back then.
No. It was on public demand, basically. There were so many cases for the 40s and 50s. Well, they opened up Project Sign in 1947. There was that many cases. And then you had Project Sedge.
When did Dr. Greer? When did Dr. Greer start his group up? Because they took some interest in his because it had military people going onto his database, and they wanted access to his database. Was it in the 80s?
Greer's own personal database, you mean?
No, he set up a group. I can't remember what it was called now, but they had their own database, and he got whistleblowers and military people to enter into that database. So the government were going to take an interest in getting access to that. So they got friendly with Dr. Greer. So that's how he became a good organizer for these so-called disclosure events. But doesn't mean that he wasn't...
Greer's best work was during the 90s when he was in touch with a lot of high-level people.
Doesn't mean that he wasn't... Doesn't mean he wasn't a crackpot. He organised it, but he still may have had a mental problem, right? And he may have been using it also to fund his own agenda. But
well, I mean, I've got my own opinions on Greer, and so have you. I mean, I think the guy's a sociopath, to be honest. But he's got absolutely no compulsions at all. He's got no. He doesn't care. You know that he's ripping people off. That doesn't bother him as long as he gets to where he needs to be.
Yeah.
He doesn't care who gets upset in the aftermath of it all. You know, and that's why he's lost all his popularity now in ufology. He had a lot of good people around him.
There's still a few people out there.
No, he's still got his hardcore fans. Yeah, sure.
Like David Icke. And he's made like £22 million, David Icke.
Oh, yeah.
So he's got his hardcore fans as well, with the reptilians. And Corey Good's still going, from what I hear too, even though he's been outed on Gaia for, for telling the producer that it's all made up.
David Wilcox, he's still got his hardcore fans.
It's amazing, really, how these people just keep on going. And Bob Lazar is another one example. There's plenty of examples where Bob Lazar has been caught out lying from his early videos to his current ones, but he's got better at storytelling. And the body language panel also said the same thing.
But anyway, let's try and stick to the interview and Luis Elizando as much as we can. Otherwise, we're just gonna. We're going to make this into 2 hours.
We've got most of the day anyway.
One is led to believe that, okay, the U.S. government is washing their hands officially of this, or certainly at least publicly, but behind back channels is asking other countries to now do what the U.S. government is pretending not to do. And when they open up the books, I'm looking at these SOPs, I'm looking at the investigative procedures. They are absolutely right out of the United States handbook for Project Blue Book. So the question is, why is there such a disparity? Is it a stigma issue? Is there some sort of weird national security issue? So those are some of the things, some of the questions that, when you say, hey, the program ended.
Right. Well, you brought up something.
Maybe no.
Well, you brought up something, sorry to cut you off, but you brought up something that was really important. I think I heard it repeated over and over again in your television series, Unidentified, Inside America's UFO Investigation. For all of you out there who are interested in this subject, I mean, this is for me, like if I were to do anything else in my life, this is what I would study, because I think it's probably going to be one of the greatest, if not the greatest discoveries in human history, will be to find out that we're either not alone in the universe or that we are. I mean, we don't have the answers yet. So I think this is, for me, one of the greatest moments of human history. And we're at an apex now where we can record these. This is what Lou's saying. We can, monitor our skies the way we've never been able to before. But you said, Lou, you would say this is a process, not an event. That was really interesting to me because, and you were talking about the revelation, like for humanity to understand. Like, I mean, it would be kind of weird if like all of a sudden out of nowhere, we were visited, right? We had an encounter, what they call a close encounter, like just a ship landed and all of a sudden, like, it's like Independence Day or something. Crazy aliens are running around and they were looking weird. And I mean, I think it would throw a shockwave through our planet. But but a process of unraveling, right? Our universe. What do you mean by that? Is it our process? Is it the process of who we're being visited by? What do you think it is that we're coming to a point where we are going to have some of these answers?
Well, I that's a, first of all, thank you for asking that question, because I do. I think that quote unquote disclosure with a capital D is a process, and it's a process for many people for many different reasons. I've often said that this is a topic that affects us all equally, because we all live on this little rock together called Earth, but also differently. We're all raised a little different. We have different philosophical leanings and theological leanings and sociological leanings and political leanings, right? So this is a topic that, I'm not a smart enough man to tell people how they should process this. That's not my job. You want to know what that is, to go talk to your priest or your rabbi, or you want to talk to an academic or a scientist. My job is simply to look at this from a national security perspective. And we've come to realize that even just from that narrow slice of the pie perspective, it's been a monumental effort. There are people who just don't want to have the conversation. And there's, again, a lot of reasons for it.
Why is that? Why? Name some of them. Name just a couple of those reasons why people won't want to discuss this.
Sorry?
Demons.
Yeah, right.
Oh, well, I can tell you from personal perspective. I've had an experience where I had a very senior person in the U.S. government told me flat out, "Lou, we want you to stop this program." And my response was, "Well, okay, sir, I can understand that, but can you give me the reason why?" Because from our perspective, these things are absolutely real. We are seeing these, we're recording them, we've got the date on them. And the response back to me was, "Lou, we're not arguing that they're real. We know they're real, but we don't think you know what they really are." And so at that point, I'm thinking, oh, maybe this is some sort of secret U.S. kind of program that they didn't read me onto, which I'm fine with. And I said, "Well, okay, sir, that's fine." And his response back to me was, "What you're dealing with are demonic beings." And I can respect people's philosophical and theological positions. I'm not here to argue that with anybody. But at the same time, to jump to a conclusion like that and stop a valid program from looking at a potential national security threat because it goes against one's theological belief system, I think that's a mistake. And that's just one example. I'll tell you another example. I was at a briefing with a very, very senior member of the Department of Defense. I mean, one of the top people. I won't mention the person's name. And after an hour briefing and showing videos and having pilots come in and give their testimony, at the end of that discussion, I had this complete blank stare on this person's face. And they looked at me and they asked me about how the Miami Hurricanes are doing this football season. And it occurred to me at that point that we're talking about a topic that some people just, for whatever reason, you just can't process it. And I'm pretty sure different people are going to take this differently. So I can't speak on behalf of everybody, but I can tell you from personal experience, there are some individuals who, that for whatever reason, this just conflicts with their view on how the world should be and how the universe should be, potentially.
Do you think, Lou, that we have actually been visited? I mean, I'm just, do you believe that like others, like some people just chalk it up to, oh, maybe this is some kind of classified government program that we just don't understand? Or do you believe, based on the evidence that has been collected and the people that you have interviewed, just based on that there is something here that goes far beyond our Earth, something that we may be dealing with? I mean, I find it hard to believe that we're alone in such a vast universe.
Well, let's start with that. You asked me a question. I think that deserves a thorough answer. So let me start by saying, people say, well, could this be some sort of secret U.S. technology? Well, you don't spend $22 million of taxpayer money to try to figure out your own technology. You don't do that. You don't fly a super secret aircraft over major populated U.S. cities if you want them to stay secret. We have entire test ranges for that purpose. So for someone to make the argument this is really some sort of U.S. secret technology, if that was the case, this would be such a breakdown in our own ability to be aware, situational aware over our own skies. That
So he's pointed out there exactly why Goof on Radio and Third Phase of the Moon are wrong when they were talking about a secret military plane flying over, what was the city now? In the middle of America there. Detroit, was it?
Paul, they've flown over every major city.
No, he's saying they wouldn't be doing that. They'd be flying it over deserts or near the...
Absolutely, of course. If you want to keep something secret, you don't fly it over a populated area over a long period of time, like the Phoenix Lights.
No, you wouldn't even
Hudson
test
Valley.
it. You wouldn't test any secret experimental
Like the
plane
Belgian
over a
wave.
city. That's what he's saying. It would be over sea, it would be over desert land, it would be over, proving grounds, that sort of stuff. They wouldn't be flying around.
Yeah. Unless you're doing it over public. If you're doing it over a major city, there's only one thing you do in there, and that's to test the response. Now that is an outside possibility. How will people react to this technology? That's an outside chance, but I really don't think so. Because let's face it, if it's experimental, it could go wrong.
That's
and
right.
If it comes down over, it doesn't add up.
No, you'd keep it to. Well, you should be able to plot in the sky where to go, where it's going to be least seen, or comes down, crashes.
And you could recover it quite comfortably without every Tom, Dick, and Harry seeing it.
Yeah, that's right. And you certainly wouldn't be having some sort of secret plane towing a banner after it. Anyway, we proved that one.
You can see in this interview, just before you started again, you can see in this interview he's a bit more open than he's ever been in the past. As I've seen every interview with him, and this is as
well, he's always quoted
as open book as I've seen you.
He's always quoted NDA.
Yes.
And he can't say too much.
And he still is. He won't say alien, will he? He was asked that. The girl side the cat asked him that, but he managed to walk around that one, didn't he? But he's hinted at you that it isn't.
But what he's saying there, though, that military wouldn't be practicing over cities, but it doesn't mean
exactly. It's giving you a strong hint. It's not ours.
That's right. So it's got to be someone else's that's flying over the city, which is which he again has said previously that it's not other countries. So it means that it just means it's got to be some other entity that we don't know that's flying over the cities, because we wouldn't be doing it, and other countries wouldn't be doing that if they wanted to start a World War III or whatever.
No, it's an active war, Paul.
Yeah,
it's an active war.
Well, yeah, it would start a war for sure. If the Russians flew a secret plane over the city and got spotted, I think it'd be around the news and all that sort of business, wouldn't it?
I mean, let's face it, the U2 got shot down, didn't it? And that caused a big diplomatic incident.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah, there you go.
And of course, they were experimenting back then. Back then, they were experimenting with those high altitude balloons for taking photographs and surveillance as well. And look how badly that went wrong.
Yeah, you mean Project Mogul, you mean?
Yeah. Well, it didn't go very well, did it? So they went to planes again.
Well, no, it didn't work either. It didn't detect anything. It was the U2 that actually detected the nuclear explosions over Russia when they first cracked the atom, basically nuclear weapon technology.
That's what stealth was always designed to do, to send up spy planes so it wouldn't get detected, and they'd have all the latest military movements, right? So Because why would you need a stealth plane when you're fighting another plane in the sky, right? It's nothing to do with that. So you want to sneak in there, drop some troops or whatever. That's what it's designed for. Take photographs and all that sort of stuff.
We'd be in trouble. We'd have to fire the entire Department of Defense and the intelligence community and start over. So I don't think it's our technology. The next question is it foreign adversarial technology? Well, okay, let's go down that rabbit hole for a second. If that's the case, then there is some foreign adversary who has managed to leapfrog ahead of us, not just to next generation technology, but beyond next generation technology. And oh, by the way, they've done this now for decades. If that's the case, and that's really what's happening here, then you're looking at one of the greatest intelligence failures of this country, eclipsing that of 9/11 intelligence failure. So if that's the case, then we've got some significant problems. Now, let's take out of the equation, it's not U.S. technology and it's not foreign adversarial technology. Then what is it? Well, I think there's lots of options. Without going into what my personal opinion is, because I think, Sarah, at the end of the day, my opinion doesn't count. I know people want to know, Lou, what do you think? And at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what Lou thinks. My job as an investigator has always been very simple. Collect the truth, speak the truth. That's it. And provide that information, that evidence to the jury. And in this case, Sarah, as I've mentioned before, you are the jury. Your audience is the jury. So my job is simple. Give the information, provide it over to you in a consumable manner, and then you make a determination what it means.
Tell me that evidence, because this is so important. I want people to understand, at least with the Tic Tac incident, right? And the incidents that you've been able to expose and document along with others. Explain just quickly kind of what the capabilities of these technologies that we're monitoring are doing. Just so you guys out there can understand it, because it's incredible. I mean, when you hear what he has to say, it's going to blow your mind, because we don't have anything today, nothing today that can actually do that I've ever seen or read about.
You're absolutely correct, Sarah. And this is why in the program that I was part of, ATIP, we had to, as an intelligence organization, because ultimately this was an intelligence activity, we had to try to, if you will, separate the wheat right from the chaff. And in order to do that, what you need to do is come up with certain categories that allow you to put these objects into these little neat boxes and say, okay, this is something that truly does not fit into anything that we currently have. So what are those categories? Well, we refer to them as the observables. And there are 5, if you will, observables from a scientific perspective we can look at and say, okay, that is definitely not our technology. So the question is, what are those observables? Well, the first one is instantaneous acceleration. Let's take this pen for a second. And if I go from this position to this position and back again, there are certain inertial forces that are experienced on the pen. And it's a product of acceleration. And so to put this into context, the human being can withstand about 9 G forces before you start having significant physiological effects on the human body. In fact, we create G suits to try to minimize those effects. Now, that in comparison to, let's say, an F-16, which is one of our most highly maneuverable aircraft.
And he forgets to mention that also the G-forces will snap a plane in half as well. I think
we don't have the materials to withstand those forces even now.
No, that's right. So once you get over 30 Gs, a rocket turning will snap in half, a missile, something like that. So
yeah.
When we're talking about how many Gs was it for the Tic Tac they estimated, if the radar information is correct?
I think we're talking like hypersonic velocity. You're talking like over 11,000 mph. I think that's like that's only 5G, but it's still incredible. And the only thing we have that can do that is rockets, which don't turn.
The calculation, I think, was something like 1,300 Gs or something like that. For that.
Gs, 1,300 Gs. No.
Yeah. Yes, it was. I did the calculations in my live streams. I took a more generous values, and it came out to 800 Gs. But I think the final tally was using the real values was 13.
Are you talking hypersonic velocity now?
talking about the G's on the craft to be able to do what it did. So we don't have any materials that go over a turning speed of 30 Gs, which is quite a lot. You're talking about 3 Earth gravities. That's going to be very heavy on the outside of the craft.
Just looking now, hypersonic velocity now is 11,400 miles per hour, which is Mach 5.
Yep. And what do they call the speed below that? Supersonic?
Supersonic is just basically above the speed of sound, which is around about 730 miles mph.
All the way up to 5,
altitude, depending on altitude, which would be quite a low Mach. 2 Mach, maybe 1 or 2.
I think anything below 5 is supersonic, and subsonic is below Mach 1. But anyway, we'll just carry on with what he's saying here. But he's talking about the pilots. Now, to me, it doesn't matter about the pilots. You've got to look at the materials. Because
it doesn't have to be manned.
Well, we don't have any materials that can do that. So whoever's moving at those G-forces must be way ahead of us in material science, right? So, but he's looking at it at a human perspective, because the craft don't have to have humans in it. So really that argument's not good enough. You've got to look at the material side of things, what our best equipment we've got even today can do. Missiles,
but
or whatever.
You still have to take into account, considering all the humanoid sightings there've been, that these things could be manned by something.
Yeah, I've read.
You still have to give that a chance.
I read the maximum Gs we've got for a head-on collision is the bunker missiles, which can withstand up to 300 Gs. That's quite a lot. So it can penetrate the ground and destroy the bunkers underneath, the concrete and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, but that's not... Yeah, of course, but they have to build up a speed, Paul. That's not instant acceleration.
That was impact collision G-forces that we're talking about there, which is different than hypersonic speeds. But normally we could travel at hypersonic speeds, but we got to gradually get up there. That doesn't exceed our body, which takes time. So for a human to be in that craft, for the tic-tac that they measured, would take us about 40 seconds, which is the same as a rocket launch, to get to that same altitude, which took it less than a second. So that's
and then of course, sudden deceleration can be a problem as well.
So this is where science comes into the argument and gives it more credibility, is what I'm trying to point out there, which is what we do. I do with the science side of things is what I do. But anyway, truth and science.
Designed specifically to handle these heavy G loads can hold about 16 Gs before you start having wings snap off the aircraft. The objects we're seeing are performing well above 400, 500, 600, 700 G forces, something well beyond the healthy biological limitations for something to withstand.
That's just
so you're done.
Insane. I mean, when you think about that, it's insane. I mean, for us to comprehend that, it's so fast. For all of you out there that are listening to Lou, it would be so fast that it would be like you would see your pen in your right hand and then it would automatically just show up in your left. You wouldn't even see the movement. It's that fast.
Or actually, it would be a greater analogy is you have a pen in your left hand and all of a sudden it shows up in Miami. I mean, you're talking about something that is accelerating well beyond anything that we know technologically can do.
And we have that documented, correct? We have that documented.
Absolutely, we do. And it's on radar. And we've had this actually. The scary thing is we've had this data since going back to the 1950s. But that's another story.
Where is it, though?
And then the other observable, the second observable, because I haven't forgot your question, is hypersonic velocity. Now, hypersonic velocity are those speeds that are defined in excess of Mach 5. So you're looking at speeds well above 3,000 miles an hour. Now, we know there's only a few vehicles that are in our inventory can go that fast.
Not a NASCAR,
those tend to
just throwing in a joke.
Right. No, we're talking like literally a rocket, right? Or we're talking about a hypersonic missile. And by the way, those objects can't stop on a dime and they can't change directions, right? They're moving so fast that you can't change directions. Plus, there's something called signatures. When you're moving that fast, you have heat ablation off the front of the aircraft. You have atmospheric ionization, the stripping of the electrons off of the atmosphere. You have acoustic signatures like sonic booms, and you have contrails, right? The smoke that everybody sees behind a jet plane when it's flying at altitude. And yet these things have
and that's why David Adair is a liar, because back in the 70s he claimed he built it in a garage. Yeah, there's no way his rocket could done 100 Gs that he was talking about back in the 70s without it snapping in half as it was turning heading towards Area 51. That guy's just complete liar, goes to contact in the desert. Don't care what anyone says about him, but yeah, he's got contacts, incredible eyewitness accounts and all this. Yeah, so his dad knew a few people.
Years ago.
Yeah, his dad knew a few people and, of course, visited the home, you know, like friends and all that sort of stuff. Of course, and we got eyewitness accounts with that particular person that he apparently was talking to, blah, blah, blah. But his science, the science is where it all breaks down. Same as Bob Lazar's science. It all breaks down with the gravitational waves and how it's meant to work and all that. But a lot of people out there don't understand science, and they don't watch the right shows like mine to understand it either. But anyway, just carry on.
None of those signatures. They don't have a sound. They're not breaking. You don't hear the sound barrier being broken.
Yeah, that's another thing. Sonic boom.
You don't have the associated contrails. You don't have anything. And these are somehow able to do it. They have no wings. They have no control surfaces. They have no obvious means of propulsion. So that's the second observable. The third observable is a bit of an oxymoron, but it's called low observability. They're hard to track on radar. When you look at them with the naked eye, you see something, but it's really hard to figure out what it is.
Are they cloaked? I mean, is it cloaked? Is that how you're seeing it? Is it kind of like cloaked against the sky, or is it because it's moving so fast?
Well, in some cases, when it's not moving, it's hovering. It's still really bizarre. The human eye can sometimes see it and see it clearly, but we have nothing to compare it to describe it. It like you hear it. It's a giant tic tac, right? But what does that mean? I mean, a tic tac shouldn't fly. A tic tac doesn't hover. A tic tac doesn't move at hypersonic velocities, and yet that's what all of them are seeing. It makes no sense, and yet there it is, and there it is in the gun camera, and there it is on radar. So that's kind of one of those things that you look at from a category perspective, low observability, where it's still this enigma, right? Mm-hmm. The fourth observable is something called transmedium travel.
So that's the whole problem, though. The gun camera they gave us is thermal. It doesn't show us the real objects. And as Nick West has been trying to point out, the glare is like 3 times bigger than the object that's hidden behind it. So we don't know what the actual shape of the object is, because it might be heat from the engines, it might be heat from the skins, and we don't know all this. So yeah, this is why it's creating a lot of debate out there with the skeptics, because they haven't released all the information in one go, radar data and any video evidence, the normal visual spectrum evidence rather than special thermal cameras and all that.
I don't know. I just think these skeptics are sounding more and more like, creaky, groany dinosaurs. There's obviously something going on that we don't understand, and I don't think it's deniable much longer, and the best thing to do is try and understand it the best we can.
Yeah, so Mick West would be wrong if that thermal signature is actually heat off the skin of the craft, rather than it gives off no heat of the engines, because he's saying it's heat off the engines and it's hiding the craft behind the thermal imaging, which is possible, but again, until we get proper information released from these guys, it's not going to go anywhere soon.
But at the end of the day, the specialists that were going to Jeremy Corbell obviously weren't pointed in the right direction, were they?
Yeah, those interviews were terrible.
They were.
But I think Mick West is making a lot of assumptions as well.
He is making assumptions.
Yeah, and maybe the truth is not black and white, but somewhere in the middle. So maybe the craft is rotating fast. Maybe it shoots off fast, but it's not actually on the camera footage. The pilots saw it, but it wasn't captured by the footage because it lost tracking, and obviously it didn't follow it as it zoomed off left on 2004. And gimbal, I think it simply cuts off, doesn't it? We only see part of the video for some reason. It sort of rotates,
exactly.
and then it
There's no way
gets
that
cut
they
off.
stopped filming at that point, Paul.
No, right. So where's the rest of the footage? But didn't they say there's no more footage? They said there's no more footage, which is stupid. So it has to be.
No. Uncle Louis said there was 12 videos that he knew of.
Yeah, they're meant to be releasing some of these. They were meant to be releasing some of that this year, though, weren't they? And it hasn't happened.
Yeah, but can't you see there's an internal squiggle going on? And he gave us a little hint earlier as to why maybe they don't want this out with some people high up there in hierarchy thinking this whole thing is demons. And you got it.
So back to our aircraft analogy here. A plane looks like a plane because we design it to fly in the atmosphere. It has a nose, it has a tail, it has an engine, it has a rudder because it has to fly. Now, a plane doesn't look like a rocket. A rocket that is in low Earth orbit, there is no atmosphere. In fact, wings are useless. So you have thrusters and you have a chemical rocket engine. And if you compare a rocket to, let's say, a submarine is underwater. It doesn't look like a plane or a rocket. It uses a propeller and it uses buoyancy to go up and down. So my point being here is that when you have an object that you want to operate in two different environments, let's say a seaplane, right? Mm-hmm. You can have a plane that flies and also one that lands in water, but it's always a design compromise. A seaplane is neither a really good airplane, nor is it really good on the water. It's always a compromise. Yet the things we're seeing can fly in our atmosphere, potentially low Earth orbit, and even underwater, and they're not changing their design characteristics. They can perform exactly the same as they do in any other environment. So
that just blows my mind. And we have evidence of this. The Pentagon has evidence of this. The Defense Department has evidence of this. This is a situation actually that happened off the coast of Catalina, correct? Where they actually saw military personnel one of these described Tic Tacs go under the water, correct?
It was reported and potentially even picked up by submarines. If your audience is interested, there's a little known, I don't know how to say this the right way, a little known endeavor, and there was by the Navy, and they actually have a nickname for these things, and they're called fast movers. These are objects that are being tracked underwater, moving much, much quicker than the laws of physics allow.
I thought it was
underwater.
Fast walkers.
So it just kind of if you're interested, you can look up that term, fast movers, and you'll see some data on it. And of course, the last observable is positive lift, or I guess maybe in the vernacular, anti-gravity. You have an object, in order to defy the natural effects of Earth's gravitational pull, there's really only three ways to do it. One is flight, right? You have your plane here flying, and you have four fundamental forces. You have thrust, lift, drag, and weight. And when you know how to manipulate those, you can have an airplane. You fly. Another way is sheer ballistics. You can put enough of a charge under something like a giant mortar or a missile, where you can literally blow it up for a little while, defying Earth's gravity, and then of course it falls back down. And then the last way is through buoyancy, or lighter than air, like a hot air balloon or a helium balloon that we see all the time. These will seemingly defy the natural effects of Earth's gravity up till it gets up to about a certain altitude, and then they come back down again. But those are really the only ways we know how to defy Earth's gravity, and yet these things don't have wings, they don't have engines, they don't have control surfaces. By all accounts, these things are flying, but they don't have any means of lift. There's no rocket engine, there's no jet engine, there's no propeller, there's nothing. And so yet there it is again, the enigma that we're forced to deal with, that we know it's not our technology. We're pretty darn sure it's not foreign adversarial technology. So then whose is it?
Right. So this is more, I'm going to ask a few more questions because I need to get to these with you, Lou. I'm taking a lot longer than I would normally with any other guest because it's so fascinating to me. So I'm going to ask you here live, so to speak, on the air with you. Would you be willing to continue to come back on the Sarah Carter Show and just be able to talk to us more about this? Because this, to me, is one of the most important stories of our lifetime. I mean, I've covered a lot of stories. Nothing compares to this, in my opinion.
Sarah, you have an amazing show. It would be my honor and privilege to come back anytime you want.
Wow, you guys heard that out there, right? You heard it out there. Luis Elizando has agreed to come back on the show and just...
Open minds. You can see the plug going on there.
Yeah, sure. But I've subbed to these now, so, I'll make sure when that next one with Lou comes out, I'll bring it to you. But with all this on now, in my opinion, Lou makes a complete bungle of things towards the end of this.
Does he?
Go on.
I thought it was almost really time to give that up.
No, it's not, Paul.
We're going to work on this together because I think getting the word out to the American people, which is going to lead me to this question. Has the President Trump and other presidents, I know I've remember Bob Lazar, and he was somebody who came out and spoke out, and a lot of people who are, I guess I don't want to say UFO fans or people that are interested in the subject know who Bob Lazar is, that he said he worked at Area 51, that he said other presidents were aware of this. I'd like to get your take on him. But is President Trump aware of what aware of what is happening now? And also the Senate Intelligence Committee and others because to me, this is a real national security issue.
So, Sarah, I'm going to try to answer this as best I can without answering on behalf of other people. Because I'm no longer in the U.S. government, I do not have the right or the privilege to answer on behalf of the U.S. government. But I think it's fair to assess at this point that the President of the United States has been briefed on aspects of this, and certainly members of Congress have been. In some cases, I have direct knowledge of some of these briefings. With that said, who was actually briefed on what they were actually briefed on?
What's it, Robert?
No, he's fine with this. He's bang on with this. What he's saying now, we know, but it's interesting when she pushes him on the Bob Lazar thing. He'll completely. He does not believe in Bob Lazar whatsoever. Just carry it on.
I'm going to politely deflect and allow them to answer that question. I think when you have senators being briefed on a topic and they come back and they say, hey, by the way, this is serious, we need to look into it, that should be an indicator to the American people that this is a serious topic. You don't have elected officials putting their political careers on the line and potentially their election just to go chase shadows. That's right. Not what they're going to do. These people are risk averse. And, that one of their primary motivations is to be reelected. And if you look like a kook or a loon, chances are you're not going to get reelected.
Right.
So I think it's fair to say that enough people now, there's a critical mass where enough people have realized that this is real. The reality is here. Now,
the stigma is changing. That's what we're seeing, a change in the stigma. It's not just about... I used to call it UFO theory. Every time somebody would try to downplay a story or make it a conspiracy theory, I would call it UFO theory because for a long time, somebody would say, oh, I saw something in the sky. It was completely bizarre. Or, these would be normal people with no psychological issues whatsoever. And immediately, even if it was on the news, you would hear newscasters like, ha, 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 they would play UFO music. They would laugh about it. They would blow it off. But now Tucker Carlson, who I think is a remarkable guy, Fox News, a friend, somebody who I have a lot of respect for, he put you on his show. He is taking this seriously. And he has said this story himself, he has said, is one of the greatest stories of modern human history, if we can prove it.
Well, the stigma is changing in part because of the courage of people like you, Sarah. I mean, you are in the media. And you have a tremendous amount to lose from a credibility perspective And I think you're right. I think 3 years ago you were probably considered crazy to report on this issue, and now I think we're seeing a change where you almost got to be crazy not to report on this issue, because there's so much evidence now being provided both at the unclassified and at the classified levels. And so
Right.
a lot of this stigma that you're seeing that is kind of melting away is because people like you are willing to go ahead and report on this topic for the first time, and not laugh and not giggle and think of tinfoil hats or quote unquote Elvis on the mothership. This is a potentially real national security issue, and our politicians are getting briefed on this, and they are agreeing this is a significant, potentially national security issue. So if you want to know why that stigma is changing, I would suggest look in the mirror. It's changing because people like you have the courage to report on it.
Well, thank you so much, Lou. And okay, so this is what we need to talk about next time. I'm going to just throw it out there. We need to talk about Tom DeLonge and, Blink 132 and how he got, in touch with you and how this all came about to inform the American people. I am a huge fan of his too. So I know you and I talked about that yesterday. I want to ask you more about Bob Lazar. Maybe give me one sentence, your quick thoughts on him. Do you have any, or do you not want to talk about it?
I don't know Mr. Lazar. I've never met him, and I don't know him personally. So, I think it's probably, as I mentioned earlier, I don't like to give my opinion, especially if it's uninformed opinion.
Right.
I don't even like to give opinions about myself, quite frankly, let alone somebody else. So I'll probably politely again deflect that question as well. But Tom, I can talk about. I know Tom quite well.
Totally fine. So Tom is good, and I'm going to get into more about Uruguay.
Sorry, Robert.
Louise knows damn well that Bob Lazar's story is more than likely bogus, so he was never going to comment on that. But fair play to this girl for pushing him on the subject.
Yeah, it sounds like she might be working as a reporter for Fox News or something like that as well.
It sounds like that as well, especially when she was mentioning.
Yeah.
What Tucker Carlson? Yeah, of course. Now, don't forget Tucker Carlson was lashing UFO people for years and years, and all of a sudden these people have come around, and he's done a little U-turn on his opinions, and now he's a big believer, and what have you. But I haven't quite forgotten what Tucker Carlson, the way he ridiculed the subject and pooh-hooed it in the past.
Actually,
I haven't quite forgotten that, but
he's terrible on UFO topic, full stop, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
But he's good on politics, so you should stick with politics. But
I don't know. I don't want to get into that. I don't want to get into politics at all. But we need to play this to the end, because this is where he says, well, Luis said something that I couldn't quite believe, and I couldn't get my head around at first.
Okay.
I want to talk about I actually did cover an event in Washington, D.C. I don't know if you remember this. It was a big congressional hearing that happened years ago, and people from all over the world testified. That would be, you remember that? It was that
was a citizen. I heard about the citizens hearing. We stayed away from it on purpose because obviously, we didn't want to cross streams, but we were aware of it. Absolutely.
Yeah. So the citizens hearing. So I was very well. I talked to the folks that were witnesses to Rendlesham Forest incident in Great Britain near our nuclear sites. I talked to pilots from Iran, pilots from British Airways that actually saw and gave testimony to Congress that they actually saw unidentified aerial phenomenon that they could not explain. So I would love to get into all those details with you. And before I let you go, is there any last words you'd like to say? I mean, because I think for so many people, it's kind of a frightening new idea for them, like we may not be alone. And if we're not, and what we're seeing belongs to a civilization which appears to be far more advanced than ours, that's a little concerning.
I think with every challenge comes opportunity. I think it can absolutely be concerning. I also think there could be, potentially some benefits if that was the case.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to say one alibi here, and that is if people really want to know how serious the government is taking this, they only have to look at the Rendlesham incident, which you just brought up, and realize that 2 individuals that were directly involved in that incident, I won't go into more detail, but your audience can look it up, have just recently been given full benefits, disability benefits by the U.S. government, and it specifies because of their involvement in the Rendlesham incident. That is on paper. That is documented by the U.S. government, admitting they sustained injuries as a result of that event. So I'll leave you and your audience with that, and also the fact that you asked me, is it possible there's life in the universe? And my response is, just look around you. Life is everywhere. On this one little rock we call Earth, life is in the deepest part of the Antarctic ice. It's in the darkest and deepest places of the ocean. It's on the tallest mountains. It's everywhere. So I think maybe what we need to do is kind of sit back for a little bit and maybe reevaluate of what we consider life is and what it means to be a living thing, perhaps.
I think I couldn't have said it better myself. That was excellent, Lou. Thank you so much. You have given me so much hope and so much to think about. It is probably one of the things that I think makes every human being, the biggest question is, who are we? Why are we here? Are we alone? And now we probably know that we are not. Just looking into this is going to be, I think it's going to be a lifetime pursuit of mine. And thank you for agreeing to be.
Yeah.
Okay, did you hear what he just said there? That 2 people from Rendlesham Forest have just received disability payments.
Yeah, it's old news though, isn't it?
That's complete nonsense. But that's what he said. They have just recently received benefits for injuries caused by UFOs.
Yeah, I thought they got that years ago though, after fighting it in court.
Exactly. So I thought, my God, this is breaking news. So I scoured the internet. Nothing. I'll tell you what they're talking about.
She's been around longer than I have on here. Radio America TV. 2011. You think she'd have a lot more followers?
Yeah. She's probably a YouTube channel is small, but a radio channel is big, like a lot of other. Anyway, I'm going to leave a link there, Paul, and we'll see now. This is from. You'll be able to play this, okay? And it's only short, but this is what he's talking about the military compensation, and there wasn't 2. There's only one that was awarded compensation, and that was John Burroughs.
And when was that given to him?
In 2015.
So that's quite a while ago.
That's it's over 5 years. It was early 2015.
So what's the default notifications here? It's never all, you see. When you sub, it's never all notifications. It's always half of notifications. Such a stupid idea that Google did there, right? Did you see that, guys? You always have to click on the bell and choose the top one. Oh,
yeah, I know.
You don't get
not,
alerted when the show's on. This is
why
it's
counterintuitive. Agreed.
Only 5% of my people know about when a show goes live. That's what my stats say. So 5% of 2,000 is 1,000 people. So well, we don't even get that. So I don't know why people sub if they're not going to carry on watching. So something's not right there. I think people subbed with my debunks on Tyler, and that's it. They can watch the other stuff, which is way better than all the other rubbish that we have to deal with. They should be coming to listen to us on these UFO cases to start with. So what's all the bang-ons going on in the side chat here? This planet can be taken over when and if they want the planet, and nothing we can do about it. Yeah, especially if they've got that kind of technology. You could zip around and drop a bomb. Well, you could drop you could just drop asteroids onto cities and destroy the cities, but not actually destroy the planet. Because it wouldn't leave radiation, you see. Which, there was actually a plan to do that, by the way. I think the Americans tried it on Russia, and it actually did come down on a city. They took out a little city with a meteorite impact. I think it was one of these TV shows, TV documentaries, where it was suspected that the Americans actually did a sneaky satellite thing which pushed down a meteorite towards Russia to see what it would do. Whether they could get away with it. I think they found some fragments of spaceship on in the debris or something, and they figured it out that it was American sort of sabotage or something. So yeah, this is probably why they need a space force for that sort of thing. Imagine if China were collecting later meteorites ready to fall down onto America. You're going to need a space force to watch out. Already, apparently, they're knocking out satellites in orbit. They're seeing some strange activity with satellites passing close to some of their GPS and weather systems, and affecting the orbit of the satellites. So yeah, some sneaky stuff going on in space that you got to watch out for now. Why can't we all be friends? I don't know. You'd think all the countries could get on now, just to set everybody's.
Nature.
They're just going to have to not push their religion and then just get on. You know, if people want to be religious and that religion discipline, then let them be. But don't come knocking on my door saying join us or else, because it's not going to work. And that's the problem, is fanatics like that, I think. So we got something else coming up, the Bexley.
No, Paul, we haven't even. I've left you the Peniston. I'll tell you what the best thing to do is leave it again now, because
no, here it is.
It's going down.
That's
got it, yeah?
Is it? Well, you can see my mouse cursor on it. I am pushing.
Let's have a look.
Oh, yeah, that's the right one. Studio? Is it a studio? Is it a YouTube video?
Yes, it is, but it's not. It's not going to be an issue, this one.
You reckon? Wait till after it's processed. Okay.
This is what Luis Elizando is talking about. But he said just now, I think you'll find this is actually 2011. Or is it 2015? I'm not sure.
Jim Peniston and John Burroughs both began suffering from physical ailments after their encounter in the forest. Ailments which did not exist prior to joining the Air Force, but ailments which began almost immediately after exposure to the craft in the forest. These ailments have persisted in both men to this day. In 2011, I began assisting both gentlemen in propounding Freedom of Information Act requests on the Central Intelligence Agency, National Security Agency, Defense Intelligence Agency, Department of the Air Force, Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, via the Department of Defense, Air Force Office of Special Investigations, and the Department of Veterans Affairs. All of the previously listed divisions of our government responded to our inquiries for information regarding John and Jim by essentially saying they had nothing on file about them. The one exception is the CIA's response, which was the most frustrating of them all, by their stating that they could neither confirm nor deny the existence or non-existence of records responsive to our request. In other words, None of the governmental entities we contacted, those we just named, even the Air Force, seemed to know anything about a John Burroughs or a Jim Penniston, despite the fact that we're all fairly certain they served in the United States Air Force for many years. We have repeatedly sought to obtain the medical records of John's and Jim's through FOIA requests, but have yet to succeed. John's physicians in particular have requested his service medical records, especially those related to what it was he and Jim came into contact with in the forest. They have requested this information time and time again from John in order to provide the best chance to treat his medical problems, which have at times been life-threatening. We even enlisted the help of a former senator from John's home state of Arizona, but still did not get anything other than learning that the Veterans Administration has a classified record set.
Also, we heard that they injected some stuff into them, wasn't it?
Yeah, wait there. Yeah, wait there. Yeah, okay, but this guy is Patrick Transgognia. I don't know if he's got Italian descent or not, but he's the guy that found all the medical records, and he actually got the compensation for John Burroughs. Now, the thing is, they denied any access to John Burroughs at first because he was at Rendlesham. And Rendlesham was classified. Then technically, because it was classified, it wasn't exactly there. Now, the reason the program was classified was because they were harboring tactical nuclear weapons at Rendlesham when they weren't supposed to be doing so. So therefore, his records at Rendlesham didn't exist. Hence, he needed a lawyer to find his own medical records, and even to this day, his records are classified. But according to Burroughs, I'll tell you what he had. I've actually got it written down here. It's mitral valve failure. Okay, which can be caused by radiation, which he believes or he alleges that he was exposed to. I think he said it was gamma radiation he was exposed to. The only thing that's suspicious, that he also alleges he was given sodium pentothal, or a version of sodium pentothal. Now, I looked into that and I found it could cause all kinds of heart problems, but only if it was taken on a regular basis. There should have been no reason for it to cause that kind of issue if it was done just the once or twice or the 4 or 5 time. But long-term use, yes. So there's a possibility that truth serum drug could have caused issues over long periods, but it shouldn't have done it short time.
Or if it was overdosed.
Or if it was overdosed, yes.
They might have tried to kill him. Not joking.
No, I mean, yeah, of course. I mean, if you want to get the basics of what happened out of someone, it's probably not the best idea to kill them because, well, dead men don't speak, do they?
Well, if you inject him, he's going to spill the beans, and then he's going to die from a heart failure because of overdose. Yeah. You know what I mean? And that way, they don't have to worry about.
He actually said in an interview that he said things while he was on it that he couldn't believe he'd said them.
Right. That's what I mean.
He sounded genuine.
Yeah. If you made it look like he died of natural causes, you don't have to worry about him spilling the beans on a secret program later on.
But this is another thing, Paul. Now, John Burroughs didn't get actually that close to the craft. It was Jim Penniston that claims that he touched it, but he didn't suffer any issues.
I thought it was only slightly higher than background radiation when I remember him doing the interview that we did a couple lives back.
Well, it was plus 10, but that was with Holtz. You see, this thing happened over like the 25th, 26th, and the 27th of December, 1980.
Yeah.
So it's difficult to keep track of all what's going on, especially when none of the witnesses agree on each other and with each other, and it's just become like a convoluted mess, to be honest.
Yeah.
Section.
But roll this on anyway and see how serious
which
it
is
got.
where we now believe John's medical records to be. Senator John McCain's office is assisting us, but the final result of Senator McCain's help we do not know as of this date. In closing, I want to say that in December of 1980, I was thousands of miles away from Rendlesham Forest studying in college. I was completely unaware of the incident. I was completely unaware of these gentlemen. It would not be but for another 28 years in 2008 that I would first encounter that incident and become aware of it. But once I learned of their story, I felt compelled to assist them however I could, as this was an event of tremendous fascination, importance, and one with casualties too. It has been cowardly the way their requests for medical records and the like have been rejected, using excuses like we have no records responsive to a request, or the requested records are no longer under our purview. Nevertheless, we continue undaunted in our search for these gentlemen's medical records so that their physicians may properly treat them. As John Burroughs once said to me, Jim and I have been left behind on the battlefield of the Cold War. Wow. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much for the both of your testimonies.
Yes. So,
yeah. So, you had to have John Burroughs. You had to have open heart surgery, and he's on a very high level now of military disability for the rest of his life. But to my knowledge, nobody else has been awarded with that.
No.
I mean, Jim Penniston. Just for research for this tonight, I looked back on a recent 2019 interview with him, and he said no such thing. He said that he suffered no ill conditions at all after the incident, and to my knowledge, nobody else. So what Elizando was talking about there, I think he's just made a bit of a Horlicks of that one, you know. I think that's why TTSA should employ a good UFO historian, maybe somebody like a Richard Dolan or William Poulin. I mean, even I wouldn't have made that mistake.
Yeah, I suppose given benefit of the doubt for him in the last 5 years could be recent, you know. It might be just like a general turn. Recently they've been awarded, meaning in the last 5 years.
But he did actually say just now. He did say those words just now, like it was breaking news, and I thought, wow, why haven't I heard this? So I searched and searched and searched and searched, came to the conclusion that he'd made the mistake.
Yeah.
But it's not the first TTSA have made.
Yeah, recent was just now. It's a completely different meaning. But that's the problem with them on the TV show too, where people showing them videos of flares, obviously flares being dropped or whatever. But
sure, like sodium pentothal, if it was true, that can cause a whole host of problems, especially with long-term use. So I don't really see, but radiation could have caused it as well. So I just don't know. I just don't know. But there's an interesting thing. When I was listening to an interview with Penniston, he's the guy who claims who actually touched it, and he got the binary code and all that, which personally I don't believe. But he said as he was getting close to it, it was like wading through water, you know, that was waist deep. And it was kind of a loss of reality, and I don't know. I think all the witnesses were confused, and that's maybe why the statements don't match up. But something obviously did occur.
Yeah. And then you got all that business that's from the future and all that sort of stuff. It might be.
Oh, yeah, I know.
It might be interdimensional, though. You know, it may only appear to be from the future. It might be just from another multi-universe. Like they sent out a probe, and it somehow entered into our universe and ended up in the forest. And then it got set back into the other universe. Right. So
yeah. But nevertheless, while it's here, it seems to be able to interact, doesn't it? So it's still a concern.
Yeah, it's a bit like we send out, was it Voyager with the music thing on it, LP, instructions how to play it and all that sort of stuff. They probably think we're a bunch of loonies because they have all these bird sounds and stuff, all playing one after another. They're thinking, how are we going to work out their language from this? But anyway, it might be something similar. Yep. That thing that showed up in the forest may be like the Voyager that we sent out to space. Theirs might be something they sent out in the universe, and somehow it ended up on our planet and for a few hours and then disappeared again. So yeah, but there was meant to be like there was meant to be like 20 coordinates around the world apparently in that binary code. So it didn't make any sense because one of the islands underwater. So I don't know if that's all BS or made up. Be good if he could repeat the numbers again, straight out of his head, right? If it's implanted into his...
Yeah, there was a rumor that he took them from a local archaeological site, you know.
Why would he do that, though?
Yeah, well, the person he apparently gave the binary code to was trying to fit a square peg into a round hole, so to speak, by adding dots in the binary here and there to try and make it fit something sensible. What they should have done was sent that binary code to a bunch of people that were UFO skeptics and see what they made of it. And if they said it was gobbledygook, then, you know, but they seem to choose who they sent the code to. And you mean, let's have a think, you know, who was looking at it. It was Linda Moulton Howe, wasn't it? I think she used one of her so-called experts. So I don't know. And personally, I think that was that was added on to the story. That was an embellishment of the story that happened over the years, because certainly Peniston didn't mention this for the first 20 years or so after the incident, so it's highly suspect as far as I'm concerned. I can't take it seriously at all.
No,
I'm afraid. Do you want to move on to the next case then, Paul? Okay. Bexleyheath daylight sighting. Well, not a sighting, a landing.
Yeah, I got it up on the map
London,
here. Plus,
of all places, in London.
I got the two ones that you're going to do today, and it's down here at London on UK map.
Whoa.
Well, it's very sensitive, isn't it? The mouse will. So it is UK. And we're going down to this location here. And what's that? Thames there, is it? What's that one coming out here?
Yeah, that's the Thames.
Yeah. Bexley, London. And we got a link to go. So we got some pictures for this one, but a lot of it's artist rendering.
That's right. Yeah, see the one on your left there, with the suckers kind of thing.
Haven't we covered this one before? I know we might have covered it briefly.
No, we covered one last week in South Africa that was really similar.
No, I remember that security thing when they were talking about 8 suckers come out and it landed in his backyard or something.
8 suckers. Okay.
Yeah, and we just burst out laughing, thinking, "Oh, they must be security fans coming out the UFO."
Yeah,
not those kind of suckers. It's still funny.
Okay,
There's a
mate.
sucker
When
born
you
every
start,
minute.
okay,
So,
well,
yeah.
you do that. I'm just gonna pop to the bathroom, okay, and get a refill.
Yeah, luckily we got no suckers here today. We got critical fingers. Yeah, let's see how it goes. So how many P breaks he had? 3 so far, or was it 4? I suppose we could read out the intro. Maybe we'll just wait for him. So, yeah. I don't think there's too many images from this, as usual. What's that one there? Aliens have landed. That's a strange looking thing. I don't know what that's part of. 3 drawings. Well, it's nice and colourful. And what's that there? It looks like a religious artifact. Maybe that's where they got the cross from. Saw it on the side of a UFO. Pop culture. And it's got an alien down there, by the looks of it. Oops, it's gone over. Yeah, I wonder what that one is. Let's have a quick look. I don't want to sign up. What doesn't actually say where it's from, is it? National Archives. Drawing of a UFO produced a crop circle. November 1998. So you'd have to look up that case there. I wonder if we haven't covered that one before, have we? See, the thing of crop circles, though, the round ones make more sense. Because they've been around for a long time. All these fancy designs, obviously faked, but yeah, it could be these UFOs that create some sort of vortex that sort of knocks down the crop that they land in. Because they've got paddocks everywhere in the UK, so it makes sense that they'd come down in the paddock. They wouldn't have like grassland. Maybe further back in time, at least, there'd be growing crops everywhere. But yeah, they've probably got more cattle now, though. But still, you need long grass for feed, to hay, and all that.
Okay, man, are you actually running this case or not?
I was just looking at this particular. No, yeah, waiting for you. We're looking at this one here. I thought it was quite interesting. This drawing here. It's from 1998. I don't think we've ever covered it before, but they said it's from the National Archives.
Yeah.
Maybe you should
producing a crop circle. Ooh.
Maybe you should actually look into that. Yeah, but we're talking about these round. The original crop circles makes more sense that they'd be round because of the vortex. Because we covered that in Australian cases, right? I'll post the link on the side there if you want to have a look at it. But yeah, I just thought it was interesting because it's not like a usual UFO that we're used to. It's got these little round things on the edge here, and it's a real detailed drawing, so they must have looked at it quite a long time to come up with all that thing. Plus it's got the little men down the bottom here, windows. But the thing is, it's got this sort of, what is it, Russian cross? Is that, what do you call that one there? Ancient cross symbol? Going back to the Templars?
You
Templars,
could see that as a humanoid, or you could see it in many ways, couldn't you?
I think it's the Templars cross. Let me just... So I'm just wondering, maybe they saw that on the side of a craft and that's where that design come from. You never know. Templar. As you know, Templars are quite famous in the UK. Here we got some images. Cross.
Well, the Templars were associated with the Crusades, weren't they?
So we got that one there that we're familiar with.
Yeah, which looks nothing like it. Really, that's a Templar cross, yeah.
But yeah, I'm pretty sure that one there. Where is it? Did I close it down?
Templars ran from the 10th century, sort of the 11th century to the 14th century when they were disbanded. That was the war against Islam.
Let me just have a look.
Very sad period in.
Okay, here's all the designs here.
Christian Islamic relations.
Here's the one. There's the one there. What looking at this one here next to the swastika.
That's cherry picking a little bit. Do you know what I mean? I can't see a UFO with a Templar cross on.
What's it on that one? Oh,
I mean, the tons pick out of there, and you just find something that matches. So you know.
Well, I knew I was seeing the design somewhere. But then again, isn't that all related to possible alien bloodline? You know, all the Templar stuff.
The Templars were involved in a lot of mystic stuff, as well as demonology and all kinds of things. But they seemed to be a lot of trumped up charges, to be honest.
What's that one called? Templar doesn't actually say. Someone trying to sell it. So the swastika comes back from that time too, does it? I didn't know that.
No, the swastika is nothing new at all. Absolutely nothing new.
The Germans just turned it into an evil symbol. That's all. But there goes our ads.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we'll get it back hopefully. But anyway, we better move on with the case.
Yeah, it's a very interesting case as well. Daylight case in the middle of London.
Yeah, so we might have to do it. Much. We have to do a FM. We have to do a FMMI on it. We haven't done that for a long.
Don't read out that table of contents, Paul.
I'm not going to. That's where I've gone to.
Okay.
It's only a little bit. Let's kick it off first.
Okay.
The Bexleyheath UFO landing. First published, July 25th, 2018. Last updated, July 17th, 2020. Written by Marcus Loth. Estimated reading time, 7 minutes. Posted in UFOs, Close Encounters. In the early to mid-1950s, UFO sightings, much like in the United States, were increasingly common in the UK. Even incidents of landings and humanoid encounters were relatively rife. Although officially, there was no governing body investigating these reports, we know from our article looking at Room 801 that this wasn't the case. In fact, to some, the sudden decline in sightings as the 50s bowed out to the 60s, and more specifically how the media would treat them, if at all, was suspicious. Writing in Flying Saucer Review in 1960, journalist Roger Muirfield states, "Although I cannot explain why the truth is being suppressed, I am certain it is merely a rearguard action that is being fought, consciously or subconsciously, by those who are responsible for the molding of public opinion." Muirfield was one of many who would suspect a censorship of such mainstream reporting by officialdom. And while he is perhaps prepared through his words to give the benefit of the doubt, many researchers today are not as forgiving. And given that the sightings, as well as contact incidents and abductions, have continued since, it is hard not to share their perspective. One sighting that enjoyed multiple witnesses during this time was the Bexleyheath landing in July 1955. Not only did an apparent alien craft land in the middle of a busy street in a London suburb, but the incident took place in the middle of the day.
Okay. Looks like there's a bit to it. A lot of pictures anyway. We'll go down there.
A thing had landed in the roadway. It was somewhere between 12 and 1 p.m. on the July 17, 1955. 15-year-old laborer, Rodney Maynard, along with the rest of the workers at a building site in Bexleyheath, a borough of London in the United Kingdom, were in the middle of their lunch break. As they ate and chatted noisily among themselves, news reached them that something was happening in a nearby street, King Harold's Way. After a second or two of quiet contemplation, the group of 30 men moved, as if as one, to the nearby road. When they reached it, they could see a thing had landed in the roadway. It was so large it stretched across the entire width of the road, and onto the pathways. Maynard would recall in the early 2000s that it had about 8 massive suckers on the underside, which touched the ground and appeared to hold the craft's weight. He would further state that the center was still, but the outer rim was spinning slowly. White lights also flashed like a camera flash. There was also a low but very audible humming noise. Maynard further remembers the craft had windows, but the glass was concave and molded together so you couldn't see it. This is an interesting detail. In our article looking at the sightings of the late UK UFO investigator, Tony Dodd, he mentions how the glass of the UFO had an effect like that of modern bathroom glass that prevents one from seeing through it.
Now, Tony Dodd was the North Yorkshire investigator that was involved. That case that we threw to the wayside last week, the one in the Kalahari Desert, where there was a purported UFO crash. So I don't trust Tony Dodd in his investigations. Anything he tends to get involved in, I tend to start seeing skeptically. But I don't see this case as being bogus at all. I always get concerned when someone like that gets involved, because Tony Dodd was another guy that believed in, like, there was a collaboration between the government and aliens. They were swapping abductions for alien tech and all this kind of garbage, so he tended to believe a lot. So just, if you see him come up in future investigations, always, raise one eyebrow at least.
When one or two of the builders became brave enough to move forward in an attempt to touch the craft, it began to spin faster. It then began to rise and move towards Bidonwell Primary School. The apparent spaceship hovered for several moments before shooting directly upwards and disappearing. Not a hoax or a prank. Maynard's 16-year-old brother also witnessed the incident. He too would recall years later that the craft was black, sleek, and streamlined. It also had a polished metal finish to it. Furthermore, there was not a doubt in anyone's mind that the incident was a hoax or a prank. Another key witness to the Bexleyheath encounter was Margaret Fry, who was a young woman in her 20s at the time of the incident. On the day in question, Fry was on her way to an appointment at the general practice in King Harold's Way. During her visit with Dr. Thakarda, the pair noticed such a commotion outside in the street that both would witness the object land for themselves. According to Fry, the craft was saucer-shaped and had a mixture of dark colors. She would state over 4 decades later that it was blue, silver, gray, pewter in texture, yet none of those colors. Furthermore, the craft had 3 spheres on the underside. One of these flopped out just prior to landing. This perhaps contained the 8 suckers witnessed by Maynard. A group of children eventually walked towards the craft, intrigued to get a closer look.
8 suckers.
However, it would rise beyond their reach as soon as they entered its immediate vicinity.
I never heard this story before.
We could have done. It's not impossible. Yeah, but anyway, Margaret Fry was she was a Londoner at the time, but she moved to North Wales, and she was never the same after the sighting. Well, she became, I don't know, basically a dedicated UFO researcher from that time on. She was quite young at the time. Yeah, possibly we have heard it before, Paul. We've done so many cases now that it's quite possible.
Well, you've heard the 8 suckers before. I'm pretty sure I've done this one.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I've heard a few accounts where people have described suckers on the inside of the craft, but so I don't know.
I kind of thought we had covered this one before.
Could have done. You could be right. It does sound familiar, doesn't it?
But we were on the floor laughing most of the time, thinking about 8 suckers and
yeah.
But yeah, we're just repeating it.
20 of them in ufology. It sounds like more than 8.
Yeah, well, when you say suckers, you're not talking about like octopus limbs. You know, he's talking about the feet that pop out the craft that support it. I guess, you know.
Yeah. And Tyler fans.
Vicinity. The sighting is still unexplained, and with many of the witnesses in their advanced years, with several having passed away, it is a sighting that will perhaps hold its secrets ever tighter as the years go by. Recent sightings over Bexleyheath. Although the landing in Bexleyheath is over half a century away now, more recent sightings have put the area back on the UFO map. In 2010, 2 separate reports within weeks of each other had many in the UFO community looking intently at the London borough. On the evening of April 20th, Deborah Perry witnessed around 30 flying crafts in the sky overhead. She at first thought they must have been part of the traffic at London City Airport. However, after viewing them for over 20 minutes, she began to realize there was something more mysterious than mere planes to them. She would recall how they were not behind each other, and in a definite group formation. They all also moved at the same slow pace. Furthermore, there was absolutely no noise, with each light having a bright white light like an aura around it. She continued to watch as they moved across the sky before vanishing. Less than 2 weeks later, on May 2nd, Debbie Fitzgerald, along with her husband, would notice a bright orange light in the sky over their home in Bexleyheath. It was moving at a considerable pace, faster than a plane, yet was completely silent. Several moments later, a second red pulsating light was visible. Both lights then disappeared. While these more recent sightings were both from a distance, 6 years previously, another pair of sightings in Bexleyheath took place in closer proximity to the witnesses. Another near landing in King Harold's Way? In September 2004, 2 separate UFO sightings again put the eyes of UK UFO enthusiasts firmly on it. On September 13, 72-year-old Dorothy Godfrey would report to the London media platform, News Shopper, that she witnessed 3 UFOs hovering over her home. From the grounds of her bungalow, Godfrey claimed to see 3 light bulb-shaped crafts overhead, which then zipped through the air and vanished. Only 5 days later, on September 18th, came another sighting. This time, from King Harold's Way, the location of the 1955 landing. As 52-year-old, Diane Taylor sat in her living room watching Saturday night television, a mysterious glow suddenly invaded the room from outside. She would later describe the object in much the same way as Godfrey, like a light bulb. According to Taylor, her daughter was the first of her household to actually see the craft. As she was looking out of the window, her daughter rushed into the room claiming it's a UFO excitedly. Taylor would state that almost as soon as she had focused on the object, it sped off. She would further claim that her husband also saw a UFO near their home, 30 years previously. Bob Taylor saw what he claimed to his wife to be something resembling a fireball. Although she dismissed his sighting at the time, she is now in 2 minds regarding the UFO phenomenon. The short video below is a recent clip of a UFO filmed over the Bexleyheath area. A mushroom without a stem. Perhaps it is worth examining a case that occurred almost exactly a year previously to the initial Bexleyheath sighting, in July 1954, in Lyddon, Kent. At around 5 a.m., Harold Carpenter, an employee at a stately home, awoke to the sound of humming coming from outside. This had happened almost every morning, at the same time, for the last few weeks. On this occasion, and partly through irritation, he got out of bed, dressed, and went outside to determine just what the source of this humming was. Once outside, the sound seemed to emanate from a wooded area known to the workers and locals as Sunny Calvert. He made his way to the area, and in turn towards a steep-looking slope. It was then, when he looked down, that he could see the strange object, and what surely was the source of the annoying humming. The object seemed to be hovering around 10 feet from the ground. It was a dark gray color and resembled a mushroom without a stem. He moved slowly down the slope, eventually settling under a group of trees for cover. From here, he could see underneath the craft. He would estimate it to be around 20 feet in diameter.
Sounds
Even
like a UFO.
stranger, though, were the 5 peculiar-looking entities on the ground directly below it. They were no taller than 5 feet high and each carried what looked like jam jars with handles in one hand, and an instrument they used to pick things up from the ground in the other. All were dressed in identical one-piece gray suits, which covered everything but their faces. Their faces, incidentally, appeared human but expressionless, aside from the nose. Their noses were similar to that of a pig's.
Oh, good.
A brief meeting of
Really?
stares. It was then that Harold noticed the humming had stopped. He also noticed that in his excitement
Strange
at
creatures,
watching
huh?
this most remarkable event unfold before him, he had unwittingly walked out from his secure spot under the trees. In fact, he was now only 10 feet away from this otherworldly vehicle. Then, one of the humanoids noticed his presence and turned towards him. As Harold stared back at the figure, the others stopped what they were doing and turned to face him also. A surge of fear went through him as he began to back away as calmly as he could. He realized the figures were also retreating and boarding the craft, which now hovered only a foot or two from the ground. After all of them were on board, the craft began to rise into the air. It would move to one side in order to negotiate the trees above it before beginning to increase its speed. Harold remained where he was, watching as the craft grew steadily smaller. Then, without any warning, a bright flash filled his vision. When his eyes focused a second later, the craft was gone. A local newspaper proof sheet of Jessie Roestenburg's encounter, below.
Yeah.
The 1954 encounter of Jessie Roestenburg. Around 3 months after the encounter of Harold Carpenter, came a similar incident in October 1954. This time in Staffordshire in the West Midlands. Late in the afternoon, with the sky beginning its rapid descent into darkness, Jessie Roestenburg suddenly heard a sound like water being poured on a fire coming from outside. She quickly went to the door of her small cottage, going outside to check her 2 sons were safe. Each lay on the ground, staring upwards. When they noticed her, each shouted, "There's a flying saucer." As Jessie made her way outside, she suddenly felt a compulsion to look upwards. Above her was an object shaped like a huge Mexican hat. It shined brightly and was made of a metallic silver substance, and had a dome on top of it. Further still, she could clearly see 2 beautiful occupants inside the dome. Each had long, golden hair, and each wore the same style pale blue one-piece suit. From her vantage point, she could see that the bottom of the faces were human-looking.
You want us to stop? Where's your volume gone?
Oh,
Your
my
volume's-
volume.
Yeah, oh, right, now you sound better. Sound like you're miles away there. Did you move the mic away?
Okay. I may have just... Is it okay
Oh,
now?
that's better. That's better, yeah.
Oh, okay, no problem. My volume's gone up for some reason.
I thought you wanted it stopped, so I thought you said stop it.
No, I didn't say anything, but I'd really like to focus on this case and maybe the next, I don't know, 30 minutes or so. They actually misspelt a name in the local media there, the local newspapers. They called it Roestenburg. Her name's actually Roestenburg, but that's not a big deal. But there's a lot to this case, and we've got a little interview with her at the bottom here, which was done by the BBC, so she'll be absolutely fine to play. But anyway, carry on with the text here.
I don't know. BBC, they're bloody vicious when it comes to copyright.
Good God, no! It's news.
She could also see, however.
Oh, I don't know. I can try.
And it's
however,
back to
the top half of
1950s.
All right. Still, we'll see.
Of their heads were proportionally larger. Jessie would later recall how the atmosphere changed, and she had the feeling of time standing still. She was also paralyzed with fear during the encounter. She suddenly thought about her children and moved her focus in their direction. When she looked back to the UFO, it was no longer there. They managed to pick out a small dot in the sky. It was circling in a bizarre manner. Jessie was satisfied this was the craft, even more so when it shot away and vanished completely.
Yeah, Dan.
The short video below features an overview of the Staffordshire incident. Just one of many in the UK in the 1950s. Disclaimer.
Yeah, if you could, if you could run this, it'd be fantastic. If you could run that interview. Yeah, Staffordshire.
Was up here.
She was. It's West Midlands. Where she was is mostly farmland.
Yeah, you can see it's all farmland.
It's rural. There's not much built up there, to be honest. Or certainly at the time in 1955.
Well, there's still not much.
It was mostly made up of. There's still not much there, no, Paul, and that's a modern. Yeah.
So it would have been less back in her day. Little quaint villages, yeah.
Yeah,
yeah, definitely. Not much around.
She had a husband called Tony. She had 2 sons that never wanted to get too involved with this, and she also had a young daughter as well. And as we'll find, everybody was affected.
Yeah.
And not always to the good either.
Oh, also changed location.
No, it's no, you're too far up north there.
It changed it. I must have moved the thing.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Staffordshire, we know where it is.
It
won't be a million miles from Birmingham there.
Yeah, I must have clicked on it anyway.
There you go. So it's below me there in Anglesey, and it's below Liverpool, but it's not south. Yeah, so it's West Midlands.
So you want to play the interview?
Yes, if you could, please.
Okay, let me just open it up separately.
Now, take into account now she was 29 when she actually witnessed this with the 2 sons, who were 6 and 8 years old at the time. The little girl was only 2 years old, and she stayed in the house, so she didn't see it. Obviously, she wouldn't have been young enough to. She wouldn't have been old enough to remember anyway. But so she's much older now in this interview. So go ahead, please, and play.
Staffordshire's had a whole crop of flying saucers. Spots in the sky, lights in the sky, strange things. But the strangest of all was seen one day over this cottage. Mr. and Mrs. Roestenburg were living there, quietly, out in the country. And, well, you just tell me what you saw.
Well, it was one ordinary day. I was waiting for my husband to come home from work, and my 2 sons went to Seifert to school, and I was getting changed, and I heard this terrific noise. It was just like a giant cauldron of water being poured onto a fire, a shh sort of noise, you know. And my first reaction was, oh, the children. I thought maybe a plane was crashing or something like that. And I slipped my jumper on and went outside to find my 2 sons lying flat on the ground in the garden in front of the house, shouting, "Mummy, Mummy, there's a flying saucer." Well, naturally, I just said, "Come on, don't be stupid. Come in the house." But felt sort of a strange sensation. Wended my way up the side of the house to where we had a pump where we used to get all our water from, and automatically looked up to see this, all I can describe, this huge Mexican hat. It was stationary, this thing, and it was bright silver in colour, and it had a dome. It was tilted to sort of, I could see the occupants in it.
You saw people in it?
I saw people in it. There were 2 people in there.
2 creatures.
These people were beautiful people. That's the only way I can describe them. They had long golden hair, like a page boy bob, just like the old kings. You used to see photographs of the old kings. And the colour of their hair was golden. Now, I was really...
What were they dressed in?
They had a sort of a polo-neck jumper affair, like a ski top suit, in pale blue. Now, these people weren't sat behind, one behind the other. They were sat together, but this, whatever it was tilted so that I could see them and they could see me.
Were you looking at them through windows, through portholes? Or
no, not portholes. It was just sort of like a cockpit, I suppose, that had this perspex or glass or whatever it was. They could see me anyway, and I could see them. And they had beautiful faces. I shall never forget their faces as long as I live. Their foreheads seemed to be a bit larger than, the bottom of their faces, as normal people you would expect to see. But maybe this was just whatever they had round their heads, which was like a transparent fishbowl. And they just looked, and I was absolutely paralytic with fear. I couldn't move, although my mind was ticking over. And they looked so sympathetic that I was just mesmerized for what seemed to be, ages, but it could have only been seconds. And I turned to sort of look down at the boys, was unaware that they were with me because I was so absorbed. And the next thing, I looked up and it was gone.
How low had it been?
It had been the height, I couldn't tell you. But the house that you've seen, it was just on top of the roof. It was hovering on top of the roof.
How big was it compared with the size of the house?
It swallowed the whole circumference of the roof. I couldn't see. The roof was completely blotted out. The chimneys I couldn't see. All I could see was this massive object that I described as like a Mexican hat without the bubbles.
And then it flew away sideways or upwards?
No, I didn't see. I just looked up and it had gone. But I assume it went straight up, because for a short while after in the sky I looked around and I said to my 2 boys, can you see anything? Can you see anything? And they said, "There it is, Mum," and they pointed up, and I watched it. It was just like a little cotton meal in the sky, and it circled us 3 times. It went round 3 times, and then it just shut off, and that was it. When I started to analyse myself afterwards, I feared that I might have had an hallucination, but then I knew I hadn't had, because my sons were so sure about what they'd seen and what I'd seen. And it went through my mind that it was a secret weapon from Russia, and then I thought, well, it can't be that, because if they had something like that,
it's always the Russians.
They wouldn't need to fear anybody or anything.
Yeah. Were you scared by it? Did you run indoors?
Oh, I was petrified. I couldn't move. I couldn't move a muscle. I was paralyzed with fear. But now I wouldn't be. Because now, when I look back, I think, what an amazing thing to have happened, and for me to have seen it.
And when your husband came home, where were you?
Well, when my husband came home from the office, I was locked in the house with my children, under a big kitchen table that we were using.
Under the table?
Under the table, yes. It's funny now when I look back, it sounds absolutely ridiculous, but This is the truth. This happened. And that's it. We were ridiculed. It was very embarrassing at the time, and people, they possibly thought, oh, she's a nutter. But, you know, who cares? This is something that's happened to me, and I'm a practically minded person, and that's it.
Yeah. So, but that's only a small part of this like ongoing. Well, not ongoing anymore, but certainly was ongoing at the time. You know, consider this happened in 1955, and she was just, you know, 29 years of age at the time. And I'll give you a little follow up to that interview, and she's older again here. Now, let's just see if there's any changes in her story over time.
Mm-hmm.
There you go, Paul.
Get it off the other screen.
Okay.
Let's go change it.
That's a nuisance, that, isn't it?
Maybe I have to write a hack tool for it.
Oh, never mind. You know how to do it now.
So it's just safe finding UFOs. Maybe not. Oh well.
I think it's okay. I don't think there's any music, Paul. Oh God, I could be wrong. But it's really short anyway. Ugh.
One such encounter happened to Mrs. Jessie Roestenburg, then living in this Staffordshire farmhouse.
I think this is from Arthur C. Clarke's Mysterious World, isn't it? I noticed that voice on it.
It was on an October day, the 21st of October in 1954. I was in the back kitchen of the house preparing myself, just having washed, and I heard this noise. Now, it was just like a giant cauldron of water being poured onto a red-hot fire, but if you can imagine, 1,000 times louder. And my first reaction was the children. I must get out, there's a plane crashing. So I slipped on my jumper, I ran out through the side entrance of the house towards the front garden to look for them coming across the fields. And to my amazement, there, suspended on the top of the roof of this old farm, was this object that I can only describe as a huge Mexican hat. It was that shape without the bubbles. It must have been 15 to 20 yards from where I stood. It covered the roof, so in circumference it must have been about 60 feet. It was enormous. The people in the spacecraft were just looking out. I could see them from the waist to the top of their heads. They were very beautiful people. They had long golden hair, like the old kings used to wear, turned under. They had a very vivid blue, like ski top affair on. And they just looked at us. Their eyes, the expression in their eyes were full of compassion. And then, all of a sudden, I felt the tension leaving me, and I felt movement, and I turned round to touch my children, and when I looked again, it was gone. Now, we stood there, and I said to the boys, "Did you see what I seen?" "Yes, Mummy, yes." I said, "Well, where is it? It's gone." And we looked, and my second son said, "There it is, Mum." And we watched it in the sky, just like a cotton reel, circle round the farm 3 times. And then it just shot straight up and away.
I was just watching the body language there. She's sort of recalling the story, so she's got it memorized.
Absolutely. And even though it's a few years apart between those two interviews, the story hasn't. But it's almost identical, isn't it?
Yeah, she was taking it from rote memory there, though. But yeah, she was very animated in her pointing out the sky and stuff and looking up at the sky. But he wasn't asking any hard questions there, where she had to go to memory and sort of remember.
No, but it was investigated by. I've got a ton of notes here, Paul, so you'll have to persevere with me a little bit. It was investigated by several researchers. One was Gavin Gibbons, another one was Wilfred Daniels, Timothy Good. Wrote about a long term in his book Alien Base. He wrote a few good things on her, and the most important thing to get to now with her case is what happened. What was the aftermath of the case? Well, she had a kind of euphoric feeling, like she'd seen, like it was a kind of a religious experience for a few days after the sighting, and then it all went bad. She came out in a rash on her face, and she started losing weight rapidly. Her appetite had gone. She felt ill. So she went to a doctor. She was starting to actually doubt now what she'd seen, and she asked if she could see a psychiatrist. Now, the doctor she went to was a private doctor, and because this had been all over the local newspapers anyway, the doctor was well aware of the event, and the doctor told her, there's nothing wrong with your mind. You're perfectly sane, but you do need to go to a hospital. And he actually escorted her to the hospital, where they gave her a chest x-ray at first. Now, I have no idea what that was for, so I don't know her precise symptoms. But the doctor told her that the x-ray was clear, but her blood tests were, her hemoglobin levels, blood cell count was so low that it was a wonder she was alive. That's interesting. The doctor also said, if I didn't know better, I would have said that you'd been exposed to a seriously high dose of radiation. And of course, within a week, if it was like a lethal dose, she'd have been dead anyway. So no, it wasn't that, but it was something else. So what they did, they gave her iron injections then for twice a week for over a long period of time, and she eventually made a recovery, but it didn't end just quite there as well. There was other effects. The two children, although they weren't, well, you can say physically affected, who'd normally been good children, well behaved, suddenly had become an absolute nuisance, and they were behaving totally out of character and had become a handful. Not only that, the 2-year-old daughter who was in the house at the time and never seen the UFO, she was crying constantly, and so the whole household became, it was completely upside down at this stage. But the mum did slowly get better. Now, I don't know what you make of that, Paul. I don't know what you make of that discussion.
Yeah. I was just having a
No,
look
I
at
was just
Discord.
going to ask if you want to discuss that, the health conditions, because this has happened before, this illness, after a close-up encounter with the UFO. It's not the first time there's been ill health, has there? There's been plenty of examples of that. I mean, you could relate it to the Cash Landrum incident, which was in 1980, but of course, we tend to think that was something black budget, but there's been many other cases as well. But I mean, and again, it didn't really end there. It was once it was researched properly. But before we get into that, it wasn't the only sighting. There were 6 other sightings over the household. Now the second one. Now we've just looked at the first one, but the second one was almost more interesting than the first one, in the sense that the whole family seen it this time. Including, the husband, Tony, he's seen it first. And not only that, the whole family seen it, 2 sons, sister, and a couple of relatives who were there staying, also a neighbour that was there staying. And not only that, there was witnesses from another farm that was several miles away, plus 2 people that were by a village. I can hear a little bit of crackling, Paul. But it's okay. So now with the second sighting, it was like a huge cigar-shaped object over the house again. We've got over 10 witnesses now. Yeah, okay, fine. I'm just heaving a little bit. That's all. So yeah, sure. So that's better documented. But the only thing with this huge cigar-shaped object, Jessie actually said that it wasn't the same object that visited on the first occasion.
Hang on, I'll just reset the mic. Okay, is the crackling gone now?
I'll tell you what, I'll just drop in and out, Paul.
I'll just reset the mixer, so you can drop in and out if you want. Well, I couldn't hear any crackling. How about you guys on Google side of things there? Any strange things? It looks like Pinky's gone a bit screwy there. Is he coming back? Here he comes. How about now? Is it back?
Yeah. Okay, I'm back, Paul.
Sounds different, I must admit.
Yeah, it did seem to go a little bit. Yeah, I can't hear the crackle anymore. That seems to have gone. Yeah. Okay. Shall I carry on? Good to go.
Hang on. Let me just check. Sounds all right to me here. How about you? Talk.
Yeah. What did the guy say? Can hear it too. Oh, so Ken obviously.
I can't hear any crackle.
Yeah, I don't hear a crackle as much as like just a very low interference in the background, Paul. It's not too bad, and it's a shame it's actually disturbed this case. 'Cause it's a good case, but not too heavy.
You sure it's not your mic needs a little turn there? I know your mic does cause crackle.
No, it's not my mic, Paul.
Maybe because my CPU fan's getting louder, maybe? Is that what you're hearing?
Yeah, it could be that's what I'm hearing, yeah.
Because
it's making everything shh. It's plugged in correctly. Yeah.
I can't hear anything myself.
Okay, fine. We'll see how it goes. Okay, so next up there was one of the researchers that first looked into it, I think it was Gavin Gibbons, found that when he talked to her colleagues and friends, they said that Jessie was, this is Jessie Roestenburg now, the original witness, she had some psychic abilities, and that was in the opinions of her friends and colleagues. Now, I don't know what you think of that, Paul, but one of the researchers, which was Gibbons, thought it was a bad thing, and he didn't really feel that there was any need to mention that. Now, the other researcher, which was Wilfred Daniels, thought that was actually what had drawn the aliens to her in the first place, was this psychic ability that she had. Although she was never, it's important to say this now, she was never a practicing psychic. She never made any money from it at all. Although her auntie, on her mother's side, I believe, was a practicing psychic, and she was actually very well thought of, and a lot of people in the local area used to go to her.
Right.
So, Timothy Good and also Gordon Crichton actually talked to her as well, and they all believed her to be absolutely 100% genuine.
Right.
It was only that Gavin Gibbons thought the psychic connection, better not mention that, because it might put her in a bad light. But the fact that she was psychic could have maybe have been the reason why those aliens took an interest in her. I don't know. That's what other people have suggested, and I'm thinking maybe that could be the case as well. I'm just seeing now if there's anything I've missed. I made a couple of notes here, but it's unfortunate that we can't find. Yes, there was one thing that she did admit on one occasion that she's seen an apparition of a ghost.
Right.
Just
but
on one
paranormal
occasion.
and UFOs seem to go hand in hand, though.
Yes. So she's seen both, yeah. And there was 6 other sightings, and she was witness to 5 of them.
That goes back to what I was saying. Back to where I was saying that maybe these creatures are breaking into our dimension and mimicking people that live in our dimension. So they might actually look like humans, but they're actually taking the form of humans. And the UFOs are coming here to round them up and send them back. So you just don't know what's going on between all those connections. Or it might be just the paranormal are actually aliens themselves. And studying us, and then the UFO comes and collects them, right? They might be like cloaking, or there's a lot of theories out there. And proving it is another thing. Getting it on camera is another thing. I know Earl says that they've tried to document abduction cases, and the camera goes static. So, to me, that would be like a challenge. Well, if we're getting regularly abducted, then we can try different experiments until we can defeat them, trying to knock out the cameras. How you do that would be Faraday cages, I suppose, various size meshes. But maybe a camera far away from the house, just to watch it from a distance, like a hidden in a car somewhere on the street, even. Also in a Faraday cage. There'd be lots of things you could try to document it, I think. Of course, you need an active case where they are getting abducted every week or randomly every month. But then you might have to wait and catch lots of footage, right? But that's the thing with the internet now. You can actually stream over 5G to some remote server, which could have like terabytes of hard drive on it, and just collect endless and non-stop recordings of the house that you're trying to observe, right? So
I could kind of capture something that's maybe so far ahead of us but my God, we're still going to give it a go, yeah?
Definitely.
Still going to try. Yeah, no point otherwise.
Yeah.
There was like a debate that came up. I can't remember which group it was on now about the scientific approach to ufology, and a couple of people were saying, "Oh no, it needs an esoteric approach and what have you," and I didn't know what to say, to be honest. But I just said in the end, try taking a scientific approach towards abductions. I mean, good God, I think we're in trouble. I think we're heavy trying to capture and pin down a civilization that's maybe, excuse me, maybe so far ahead of you. Then you're always going to struggle with that one. But hell, you've still got to try, haven't we? But going back to this case, that Jessie did live actually well into her 90s. She didn't die until 2017, and she was 29 in 1955. So that made her, a ripe old age. But the thing is, the two sons would never speak out. They confirmed what had been seen, and this is the thing: UFO investigators can be a proper bunch of like wasps and hornets. To be honest, they're all over you. They just want your story, and they don't really give a shit how they manipulate them. So you can understand why some people don't want to. They're like the paparazzi, at times. You tell them something and they twist it, and then they put it in a book, for their own benefit. So yeah, the two sons would never talk, and even the husband, Tony, in the end, he stopped speaking to them as well after he'd spoken out for years. And he wasn't witness to the first sighting. It was only when the second one came around that he thought, "Oh my God, yeah, we got something here. There's something to it." Yeah, but those health conditions, excuse me, just clean my throat there. Those health conditions she experienced were, shocking, to say the least.
Yeah, I was trying to find a map of all the sightings in 1955, was it?
Oh, yeah, that's not a bad thing to look for. But there was a kind of a UK wave in the 1950s. I wouldn't try and pin it down to 1955, but yeah, there was plenty going on. And you have to admit that it does tend to happen. I know we looked at that Bexleyheath case where it happened in daylight in London, but generally these things tend to happen over remote areas. And there's usually few witnesses.
Yeah. There's no good maps, folks. Not for UK anyway. What's that one? 10 million people. And Australia, North America, and England, all in the red zone. 25 plus. What's that mean? 25 plus times 10 million? Is that what it means? 250 million? Surely not. Yeah, be good to break it down to year numbers, but I don't think we've got that sort of information handy,
No.
It's not been that well documented over the years. And also
that's the whole thing about a good database and big data.
Mm.
I mean, it's no good having 50 different places getting their data if they're not sharing their data and correlating their data with everything else. And that's been the whole problem in ufology for decades now. I mean, NICAF didn't want to share their data with APRO. APRO didn't want to share the data with NICAP, and MUFON doesn't want to share the data with anyone unless it's got a price tag on it. And then where does that data go? Does it go to Bigelow? Well, it seems to have done for $1 million. And they don't really care about the names that were attached, even though they were supposed to be confidential. And where's that data gone now? And why aren't the public seeing it? This is the whole. It's troubling. It is. It's not being properly looked after. I think we've got this UFO scientific coalition now. but that's a fledgling organisation. It sounds like the way forward, but they need more members, they need more data, and I just hope that people go to them rather than MUFON. Yeah, to be honest now, I just hope that MUFON becomes absolutely extinct and someone else takes over. But I don't want people that we know that have been good people, boots on the ground researchers. We don't want them to go. I just hope they get a job with somebody else doing the same thing as they're doing now. But it's just more open and available to the public. Because, I mean, to be honest, whatever this UAP task force, whatever it becomes, can it really be any worse? Even if some of the best cases do get circumnavigated somewhere else, at least we're going to get some public transparency. Well, let's see how it develops. We don't know that yet. I think they've got 180 days before their first report, so we'll see. We'll see. But as for MUFON, and Jesus, man, you need to, even to look at the mundane cases, you need to be a member. So you got to pay. You've got to pay.
So unexplained
it's not reasonable. It's not fair. It's not on. All information on UFOs should be shared.
Yeah.
When they get a good case, it should be appearing on. It should be in newspapers. It should be on groups. It should be on podcasts. But where is it? It's nowhere. I mean, we've even had. And I mean, I'll tab this out with Earl. We've even had Earl come on the show when he said, "Hey, we're investigating this case, and it's fantastic, but I can't tell you anything." It's not good enough.
Yeah,
it's not good enough. It isn't. It's not fair. It's not on. Who are they to hide this data from us and everybody else?
Oh yeah, good night, Charles. We're going to wrap up now anyway.
Yeah, sure, man.
I think we're finished, aren't we? And you said there was going to be maybe more, but I think we better kick it.
Yeah, I've got more for next week, but yeah, we can wrap up now if you like. It's kind of the 10 to 1 here, so it must be hell of a late for Charles, yeah, because of all the stuff he's had going. Well, thanks everyone for joining, and hope we haven't bored you too much. Especially my rant at the end.
Well, that's an interesting graph. What's that one? Number of appearances. What's that mean? UFO appearances? That goes way up at the end there. I know Cheryl, what's her name? Did analysis through MUFON database. So what's that say? Different states? DC, is it? California, way up here. WA, where's that? Texas, oh yeah, they got lots of Air Force bases there. Nevada, Illinois, AZ, Arizona, yep. PA, what's that? Oklahoma, is it? OH? No, what's OH?
Yeah, let me see what you're looking at.
MI. Oh, okay. So the least state with UFO sightings is DC. It reckons it's 0. Surely that's not true. 0. How's the split across the states? So where are they getting that information from? Map of sightings across the world.
Yeah, I don't know where you've got the
Well, I don't know where it's from.
That database from
2018, so it's pretty current.
Yeah.
I can post the link in the side. You want to have a look at it. I was just searching to see what we could find on stats wise. UFO stats. It kind of looks like an interesting one where it breaks it down. So why would DC have the least sightings? Kind of interesting. What was the next one? What's that one? Oh, right. per country. So US is the biggest by far. Rest of the world,
Yeah.
Canada,
Well, what you got to
Australia.
see there is, you know, you've got the you don't have the reporting networks in a lot of these like third world countries, but then again, France has got a good reporting network, so you'd thought they'd be well up there.
Geospatial latitude, whatever that means. Conclusion provides our assumption that the number of sightings are denser in USA than any other part of the world. And why is that? Have they got the most nuclear arms? You'd think over here, Russia, we probably don't know any data over here. That's the problem. China, Russia, I think it would change the map quite a lot if we had real data. But like the C-19, right? We know the lump in all deaths now, and we know it's not the true stats at all. And if you try and point that out, Google silenced you. And what's this one down here? Germany, D is it? Or was that Denver? Oh, right, no, that's right, it was states. 50 states. DE, what's DE stand for? Denver? It's got very low numbers there. ND, not too sure what that stands for. VW, SD. Yeah, I'm not too sure on all the abbreviations for states. And what's that one there? Sightings across Australia, America. I'm not sure what that means. And what's this one? Shapes seen. Oh, right, shapes is quite interesting. Light, triangle. Oh, that's pretty big there, isn't it? So if it's like a bright light in the sky, that's the most one. Triangle, circle, fireball, other, unknown, sphere. This looks like Shara Costa's research to me, because she did that as well, didn't she? Disc, oval, formation, cigar, getting down. Where's cylinder? Way down the bottom here, right? Cylinder, flash, delta. That's quite interesting.
She's done a lot of fantastic work, you know.
And what's that? Pure sightings.
Maybe she's but I'm just posting a link here for the guys. This is the Scientific Coalition for UAP Studies, and you know you can have a look at their site. You probably have to make an account and sign in before you see everything. But anyway, there it is down the side chat for you guys.
This one's saying hour of the day when you're likely to see a UFO, and it is
it's mostly after dark.
1600, which would be what, 4 or 5 p.m. onwards, and the most prominent one is that one there. So what's that time there? 2200, 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah, but it's obvious it's going to be like that because people are still up. Plus, it's dark, so it's more easy to mistake something, isn't it? And the most credible sightings will come in daylight because you're less likely to cock it up with something else.
Well, this is actually quite a good sight. Actually, look at this sighting durations per shape during the day. So again, you can see here. Which ones are the most prominent? Light in the sky, which is obvious for 2200 hours. Oval shape, tear shape, triangle, and unknown. So yeah, it kind of makes sense. It sort of fits what we already know, right?
And what you need as well is distances. Oh, is that it? Is that distances?
It could well be. Comparison appearances reports each year. Okay. So it's been gradually increasing. Difference between occurrences. Keeps on going, doesn't it? Keeps on giving. Per country. What's that one? Per country. Mean sighting duration of each state. Okay. So, oh, you got the link there. People can look at it. Oh, look at this one. What's this one? Cluster of UFO sightings. Oh, that's more interesting. And you got California, and then you got what? The area that we were looking last week, wasn't it? Down at Florida here. And then you got this one up here at Kentucky. Is that where there's not nuclear weapons, maybe, or power stations?
Kentucky. Don't there's too many that way. There's not. I don't think there's any ICBMs there, but I'm not sure either.
That's quite interesting.
But Kentucky's always been a bit crazy, like the stuff going on, you know.
Oh, that's all the maps there, but yeah, quite a lot there. Go and check it out.
I mean, I've seen some stats recently. I mean, Texas used to be one of the biggest states for you know, for UFO sightings and stuff going on. But now it's right down there. It's the lowest state for sightings. I think that was last year. So like a bit of a turnaround there. But these things, like, you know, you get like UFO flaps, and you know, all of a sudden things go quiet. But it doesn't necessarily go quiet because it's gone quiet in the US. You know, there could be a whole bunch of sightings in South America or Venezuela or Europe, and you know, so it's kind of like they move around.
Yep, I'm just winding up here, so we'll just send off. Oh, we didn't do a FNI. Do you want to do that now?
What's that?
You want to do that one?
Oh, absolutely. Okay. With the Luis Elizando interview, I've got to give him 8.5. Well, no, we can't do that. I'm going to give him 4. I'm going to give him 4 sheep for that interview. I'd have given him maybe nearly 5 if he never made that cock up about the Vendershun guys at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he was definitely worth a 4 in that interview. Yeah, and he was more open than certainly I've ever seen him in any other interview. Yeah. So I was pretty happy with him on that.
So
and then Bexleyheath was the next one.
The suckers.
Daylight sighting in London.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give that one 4 as well.
Really? That high? Okay.
Yeah. Because just because of the witnesses involved, because I looked a little bit into the witnesses, and yeah, sure. I don't care if the craft sounded obscure. It was the quality of the witnesses and how many there were, and they were all describing the same thing. So I'll go 4 with that one as well.
All right.
And for the last case, with Jessie, damn it, Jessie Roestenburg, by the way. I'm gonna go. Do you know what? I'm gonna go full 5 on that.
All right. Nice. Yeah. She looked pretty credible there.
Yeah.
With the body language and
plus
stuff.
Medical data. The only thing we don't have on that one is like you know, a couple of photographs. That would have been nice just to see if something was there. But yeah, I really believe them, and so did everybody else that looked at the case.
Well, everybody's leaving, so we better leave too.
Yeah. Sure, man. Thank you for joining.
Okay,
same time next week.
Hopefully. You never know what disasters are going to happen.
Yeah.
What's that not playing? Yes, it is. It's a bit slow there. It wasn't too bad. No real technical problems.
No.
We didn't quite make 20 viewers or 20 likes, but you never know. You might get some after the show finishes processing.
Well, we never had. Yeah, some of the usuals were some of the regulars that were missing, weren't they? Like Sue and Shelley and. So yeah, I'm sure they'll come and look later.
Hopefully, their dogs get better.
They're not cheesed off yet, are they?
No. Shelley's dog's having seizures, and Susan's is vomiting.
Oh.
And I said, just be careful, because it has been known that dog food has been poisoned in certain places over the years. But also there's a type of bacteria gut that was found in dog meat last August, which may have come back again. You never know. Which made little dogs, it killed little dogs, but made big dogs very sick. Anyway, hopefully it's nothing like that. Maybe it's just two unrelated things with dogs having seizures and vomiting.
Oh God,
anyway,
yeah. I don't think it'll be. Yeah, don't think
good night,
to do
all.
with that.